Welcome, everybody, to the Good Thing They Suck Gaming Hearthstone podcast, episode 1. Today I'm joined by Matt Hopkins and Alex Holcomb. And of course, I'm your host, Alec Overboard Van Ness. So, recently there's been some pretty big changes in Hearthstone with Warsong Commander getting basically a full rework of its original concept and its original idea, and essentially the card is dead. So before we get into all of that
No one
and
died.
some more, I'm a little curious today of what are you guys playing right now? You know, like Grim Patron's essentially gone, so what are you guys laddering with? What are you guys playing with?
Screw Grim Patron. I always sucked at playing that deck anyway. So I am playing Control Warrior. Yay! Who needs Warsong Commander? I don't.
Patron.
You're still playing Patron.
I'm not playing Patron.
I mean, it sounds like Alex is still playing Patron.
Yeah, so with the Patron nerfs, I kind of thought about it. I felt like Priest was going to be good, so I've been playing that and then some Aggro Druid, and Tempo Mage.
What kind of Priest are you playing?
I'm Scum. I'm Scum. So,
You're
I play...
Hey, you're not playing Face Hunter. You're fine.
Yeah, I don't know what you're talking about. Like, come on.
Oh, yeah! I don't almost the cards for that deck.
Good!
Yeah!
That way you can never give in to temptation.
I'm playing Control Priest, not Dragon oriented, because I feel like after the nerfs to Warsong Commander, I feel like some of the cards in that deck get a little bit better. I think that you can actually being able to play Injured Blade Master is a really good thing. Instead of having to keep him in your hand, never casting him, seems really good. It seems very good. And you no longer get take 50 damage in one turn. So actually healing up to 30 life is really good. So that's the thing.
I don't know what you're talking about. I'm gonna deal you 50 in one turn.
Oh God. Are you? Oh God.
All right. So let's talk about this nerf for a little bit for those who don't exactly know what the nerf is. Even though I'm pretty sure at this point everyone knows.
Everyone knows.
So Warsong Commander doesn't give minions charge anymore.
It doesn't?
Now gives charge minions +1 attack.
I thought it gave all your minions +1 attack and charge.
No.
Oh God.
It just gives +1 attack to charge. Basically, we have an overcosted Rage Leader, but only for charge minions.
Whoa,
seems bad.
2-3.
That seems bad.
I mean, you're right. It's a 2/3, but the stats are pretty bad for drop.
Wow, rude. Okay.
I mean, it's essentially Grim Patron Warrior is unplayable right now with the changes. And,
correct.
A lot of cards have probably gotten worse from this change, and a lot of cards have gotten better. So, I think today we should discuss what cards you guys think have become worse because of the nerf, and what cards are way more playable now, since Grim Patron's not really going to be in the format anymore. We're not going to have some cool tech in a lot of decks. You won't need it anymore. And so what do you guys want to begin with? Do you want to begin with the cards that have gotten better, or the cards that have gotten worse?
Actually, before we go into that, I want to just, for a brief moment, talk about the nerf in general, because I know that Blizzard has actually been getting a little bit of flack from some of the community for the nerf. A lot of people feeling like they got lazy, and that they could have done something different that made the deck slightly less dominant but still playable, which generally is what you're looking for when you nerf a certain deck because it's too good. What I'd like to say about it is I kind of look at the nerf in two ways, and in one way I'm disappointed with the nerf because historically there's only really ever been two kinds of decks that have been the best decks in Hearthstone, and those are one, decks that just include a lot of cards that are individually very powerful. A good example of this is generally Druid decks where you just play a lot of really good minions, and that's about it. The same goes for like Control Warrior and Handlock. Just all the cards you play are very good by themselves. And the other type of decks that have been very good are the extremely broken combo decks that just kill you in one turn. And what I think Hearthstone needs is to have more cards in the game that encourage players to play decks that revolve around cards that are not individually powerful, but when combined with other cards that they have synergy with, become very powerful. Because I think that this is something that Hearthstone lacks at the moment. And all of the good cards are cards that you just play, and they don't need any other cards to be built around them. They're just good by themselves. And I think that Warsong Commander was one of these cards that, card wasn't really that good. But when you combine it with cards like Frothing Berserker and Grim Patron, all of a sudden something really cool happened. And I really think that Hearthstone needs more cards like that encourage players to think outside the box and build decks like that. So in that sense, I'm a little disappointed that the card no longer does that. On the flip side, Blizzard has stated that the point of the change was for future design and making sure that R&D can print more cards that might have really cool effects, and especially neutral minions that they don't have to worry about being too broken with Warsong Commander. So while I think the nerf is disappointing for the present, I have faith that Blizzard will use their ability now to print more cards that are really cool and that might have really cool effects, really cool strategies, so that as more sets come out, we'll get more and more of these cards that do incentivize players to build synergy-based decks rather than individual power-based card decks.
And I mean, that makes sense. I do kind of agree, though, that the nerf felt a little sloppy to me, especially if we look at some of the past nerfs that they did, like Gadget and Auctioneer and Scavenging Buzzard are like the two big ones. Like, those cards basically just stayed the same. They just got a mana, like, they got their mana increased, and so it's a little weird to see Blizzard actually take a card and completely change it. Like, it's an interesting concept, and does it worry you guys at all that there can be other cards in the future that might get completely changed and not be anything what they're like, or is this just one-time thing because, or once in a blue moon type of thing? Because it was, the future wasn't foreseen very well. Blizzard didn't expect this to happen.
So like, the way I look at it is this is the first time they've actually 100% changed a card since Unleash the Hounds. Whenever it used to give your beast +1/+0 in charge. So like, it feels like they're actually trying to make the game better, because the best ability in the game is charge. The scariest at least. Some people have different opinions, and that's okay. And so, like, with the scariest ability being charge, I really feel like you can only do that to like cards that give multiple things charge. That's why I'm okay with this nerf. Is the fact that I actually don't think Patron was OP by any means. I feel like it was because people were actually starting to figure it out, like figuring out how to play against it and things like that. You see tournaments going down with it and everything like that. I really don't think that they're going to start doing this to a bunch of cards, like, certainly. I'm really not scared unless they print new cards, because none of the cards right now seem like, outside of Force of Nature, maybe, that they need to get nerfed. Because Force of Nature is the only thing that gives you a bunch of charge that can be broken.
Because
I mean, like, gives you temporary charge, though. Like,
but
the issue was like, if you look at traditional charge cards, they have decent attack, low toughness.
Right.
But with Warsong Commander, you could charge up 3/3s, and so you're giving things charge that still had
or Death
they
Lord.
still had their toughness. Yeah,
The main thing about it is that honestly, Grim Patron was not the problem with the deck, because Grim Patron in itself is a very fair card. Because in order for you to actually, make several Grim Patrons, you actually have to invest a lot into that. You have to invest a lot of mana, a lot of cards, and you have to build around it. You have to play cards like Whirlwind, like Inner Rage, that are generally seen as actually just not being great cards in general, right? It kind of goes back to what I was talking about earlier, where those cards are only good when combined with this strategy. The problem with the deck was Frothing Berserker and the ability to kill someone out of nowhere in one turn, which you're not going to do with Grim Patron. The only way you could do that was with Frothing Berserker. And so that really was the big problem. And Frothing Berserker seems like a very average card when you first look at it, right? It's, I'm sure Blizzard never thought that someone was just going to break Frothing Berserker, right, and make it absurd. And it's really hard when you're designing cards to look at it and be like, these are some things that could possibly happen, and like this card could get out of hand. And that's why I think that the change is acceptable, because it really is tough when they're trying to make new cards that do cool effects, because Frothing Berserker is a really cool card. And, cards like that, I think, should be in the game, because they're cool, they do cool things, they incentivize people to build decks in certain ways. But it's hard to be able to print those cards when there exist other cards in the game that could make them completely out of control.
And I also want to say that this is the second time they've nerfed this card. Originally, it was gave all of your minions charge.
Yep.
Which they noticed really quickly with multi-giants and cards like that, and Alex Jazza, that was pretty powerful. And so they've done this with other cards too that have charge, like Leroy, the card Charge. It used to give charge for 0 mana.
Yeah.
That with Auctioneer was really good. Play Alex Jazza, haste it up, put them to 15. Play Gorehound with turn before and kill them. So I feel like that they approach this in a very good way. Anyone who says that like this isn't good nerf, they don't understand that like even if it was because the Patron was OP, that in the future they said that like certain cards they wanted to print at like neutral, but they couldn't. So like first off, it's Blizzard's game. Like if you're upset, like it sucks if you're upset about it, and like I built the deck golden. I'm not 100% happy about it, but like you can't be that upset. They're trying to like make money and things like that, and like you have to understand that from a business standpoint. So you can't really make unfun things in your game. So
and
it's a future thing. It's something that is not good now, but down the line, everyone is going to look back and be like, that change just had to happen, or some of the cards that are in the game now just like couldn't exist.
Yeah.
Well, Jesse was originally supposed to be a neutral, so just
we have potential for a lot of new cool concepts and new cool cards to come out, because we don't have to worry about Warstone Commander. Then overall, I feel like the format can get a lot healthier right this second without Grim Patron. I feel like we can play some of the decks that we were playing earlier on in like past seasons, because you're not worried about just losing to Grim Patron Warrior. And then we're seeing a lot less decks that just came out just to stop Grim Patron Warrior that are not as fun to play against, or you don't necessarily want to build, or not everyone wants to play. So I'd say overall, while I think it's still a little sloppy of a change, it just didn't feel like it had a ton of thought into its text itself. The card getting changed and just getting that ability removed, I think overall is good for the game.
And I think the text of the card that they changed to was perfectly fine. I think that they probably should have changed the stats, probably made it a 3/3. But I think it's fine. Yeah.
So what Ben Bro said is that they wanted to keep it a 2-3, and they went over a bunch of different variations of it. Like originally, it's supposed to be just have charge instead, because they want to keep something around it with charge.
Yeah.
And they said that it having charge looked really, really bad next to Korkan Elite to a new player, because you'd look at that and then you look at Korkan Elite and you'd be like, why does this have 2 more attack for 1 mana? So like,
I don't know. I think actually, if it was a 2-3 with charge, that would be great. Because it would once again encourage synergy, and especially if you had 2 in play, that they would buff each other, which would make sense.
That's one of my big problems.
Yeah.
No, they talked originally about just having charge.
That's it.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I think like if it was a 2-3 just charge, though, I still think that'd be cool. I mean, Gilded Stalker, that's a 2-3 with stealth. Like, it's interesting to have something with a bigger butt that has charge. You know, be able to take out a 2-2 and live would be cool charging.
It would be very interesting, definitely, because of one of the things about Warrior and Arena is like the fact that like they don't have that much tempo, and like their best cards are like weapons, and weapons aren't that good in Arena. Well, like they're great in Arena, but if you draft too many of them, then you're just like don't have enough dudes to gain board control, and then you take too much damage from that. And so like it'd be really cool because then like you have like a more tempo-ish card with like charge that you could play and wipe away their 2-drop. And like that'd be pretty cool. But like you know, I understand that like, you know, this is the card they wanted. This is the card they're gonna give us, I guess. So but I really have always liked the fact that Warsong Commander worked with other Warsong commanders. So that was cool. It was like a card that had really good synergy together. And that is one of the things I did get upset with. I really wish that Warsong Commander buffed each other.
Yeah.
But
I mean, it'd be cool, but what are you gonna do? What are you gonna do? I gotta say, the Warrior Arena, man, is so bad. I feel like it just got slightly worse from this.
It got worse, but it's you know, it's really hard to make Warrior and Arena that much worse because it was already terrible.
Yeah, I mean, like, I hope Blizzard calls Arena Warrior in the next expansion.
And they have talked about that they plan on printing a lot of cards to make it better.
Warriors' lives matter.
I'm excited.
Warriors' lives matter.
Hashtag Warrior Lives Matter.
Arena Warrior Lives Matter.
Oh yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
Hashtag
Constructed Warrior. No.
Yeah, like regular Warrior. No. Like Control Warrior is still pretty good.
That is an actual hashtag, guys.
Is it actually?
Yeah.
Okay.
Like, I think it's an actual hashtag.
Nice.
People do jokingly on Twitter.
No, actually, it started from a bunch of the big streamers thinking that it because it sucks because like I personally one time was like, man, I really like playing Warrior. Don't have all the cards for it. Gonna do Arena. I got Warrior, and my deck looks sweet. I was like, man, this is like the best deck I ever drafted. And I was praying it at the time, and then that happened. My opponent played turn 2 to Snowchoke, and I was like, oh my god.
Sometimes I have a Warrior daily. I'm just like, I'm gonna draft Warrior Arena because I don't really have a Warrior deck anymore. And then it's like, oh well, this totally sucks. I'm not gonna get the whole 2 wins I need for this daily, I guess, or I'm not gonna get the 5 wins that I need. Jeez.
Oh, you have 5 wins for Warrior, and you're trying to do it through Arena?
I mean, I currently have 5 wins for Warrior.
I hope you enjoy losing about 2,000 gold. You know, Alec, I just realized something. You're talking, yet I don't see your mouth moving.
Yeah, you know, so I had a webcam for a while,
Mm-hmm.
and then I stopped using it and packed it away somewhere, and I can't find it anymore. So I looked for about 2 hours the other day to try finding it, and was unsuccessful. So I'm like webcamless right now until I get a new one, which I'm
Just
really
like
hoping can be soon. Yeah. Like,
so to clarify, if I stare into the eyes of the picture of you that I'm looking at, that's not awkward?
I wouldn't say it's awkward. Like, that's totally up to you, man. I don't judge at all.
All right.
So, do you guys want to get into list, or do you guys want to keep talking about
Let's
some
go to
changes,
the
or
because
talking about anything
all
Hearthstone related that you guys really want?
Yeah. We actually have prepared lists of the top 10 cards that we think get better and worse with this meta shift now that Grim Patron is no longer part of the meta.
You
So
mean
like
worse
I'm
and
seeing
better?
this list for the first time right now. Like you guys just sent me it. No clue what you guys decided until now, and I'm seeing a lot of interesting cards right now. Some that I wouldn't expect. So I'm really excited to hear your guys' reasonings behind putting
Like
these
Skull
cards
Clamp.
on.
Skull Clamp got a lot worse, guys. You can't put it on your Patreon now and draw 2 cards. Skull
You could
Clamp's not
never
as
do
good
that.
now.
I think we're
You
talking
could
about the wrong game.
you could
This is
never do that.
Hearthstone,
Oh.
not Magic.
It has 3
We're
toughness.
talking about Hearthstone?
And what?
No, because like you had Whirlwind and then you Whirlwind again, and then you would
Oh.
Skull Clamp.
Yeah.
I see.
Okay, that makes sense. That makes sense.
Okay.
All right. So
Well,
do you
that's
guys
why
want to
Anyway.
start
that's
with-
why Justice official. Skull Clamp and Drifty 2 OP guys. They can't have Skull Clamp.
Yeah, well, that's one mana.
Just-
That's 1 mana draw 2, whenever
Yeah.
you want,
That's brutal.
Yeah.
unless they silence your Skull Clamp.
Oh jeez.
Oh
That's
god, let's not even get into science. Oh man. All right, do you guys want
But
to start
yeah.
with the best or the worst?
We're going to start with cards that
worst.
got worse,
Cards that
and
got
we're
worse.
going to start with number 10 and work our way up.
All right, so number 10, it looks like Flame Strike. You guys think Flame
Flame Strike.
Now this is all, of course, constructed, right?
Yeah, we're
Mostly
strictly talking about constructed
But
from
no,
here on.
Flame Strike is so bad in Arena. Who would draft that card?
Whoa, Grim Patron is bad in Arena.
Yeah. All right. Cool. So this is we're just gonna premise this that this is all mostly constructed
Yeah,
play.
this is all constructed.
So like before people freak out and be like, "Well, Flame Strike's amazing." This is like
And to be fair,
constructed Flame Strike.
Flame Strike is definitely still fine.
I mean, that's why it's number 10. Not
And really, a Flame Strike has always been a card that's been like kind of on the edge of constructed play, where everyone knows how powerful of an effect it is. But 7 mana is a lot. You know, it is a lot to invest. It generally means you're not going to be able to cast another spell that turn. And so we kind of see it pop in and out of decks. Freeze Mage is the only deck recently that has been playing this card, and honestly, Freeze Mage would prefer to play 2 Blizzards most of the time, but because of Grim Patron being such a threat, you needed something that was able to deal more than 2 damage in case your opponent went off and made a board of a bunch of Patrons. Casting Blizzard against Grim Patron, not good. You don't want to do that. So a lot of the freeze, unless you have spell power, but a lot of the freeze mage decks had been reverting to a 1-1 split of Blizzard and Flame Strike. And now I think that without Grim Patrons being a threat, I think that a lot of those freeze mage decks will just go back to playing 2 Blizzards, no Flame Strikes. Obviously, this is, still up in the air, as Flame Strike is still a perfectly fine card. But I think the difference between 6 and 7 mana is a lot. And the freeze off of Blizzard is extremely valuable, especially when you're dealing with really large minions like Mountain Giants and Molten Giants from Handlock, where sometimes you don't need to kill them, you just need to stop them from attacking you. So I think that Flame Strike did get a bit worse. Obviously, still might pop up now and then in constructed play, but for the most part, I would expect just Blizzards.
Interesting. What about, does that include Echo Mage too? Because I've noticed, been seeing a lot of people playing Echo Mage. Echo Mage like Blizzard
should
over
feel
Flame
bad.
Strike, or
They're playing Echo Mage. Who cares what they're doing?
I mean, I've
They're
seen
bad. You should feel bad.
been watching a lot
So-
of videos. I've been seeing
You
it
know,
up top,
you should-
pretty deep into Legend right now. So
You shouldn't play Flame Strike usually in a deck where you want the Blizzard effect, unless you're playing both. If you're playing both, you specifically want 2 different board pipes.
Mhm.
I think that the fact that the 2 reasons. One, that you always want 2 Blizzards because of the freeze effect with Doomsayer. It's very powerful. But I also think Flame Strike is good in a format if the Dragon Priest gets big again. Because it happens that, of course they have 6 toughness guys and things like that. But they have the guy, the Corruptor, and things like that, which you'll see around turn 6 or 7 where you can play it. I think the real reason this card is going to hurt a lot is because I think that now before playing like a Flame Strike in Freeze Mage with the two Blizzards, you're going to want to play the two Blizzards. And if you want that type of effect, you're going to want something else that deals 2 damage. Because I think that a bunch of people are going to revert to aggro decks because those are the cheapest decks in the format. So a bunch of people are going to be playing Seeker Paladin. So I think you're going to want Explosive Sheep.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say for Echo Mage.
I think you're going to want that card.
For the brief period of time that I was experimenting with that deck, I was playing 2 Explosive Sheep because it's cheap. You can run it out early, and it will generally trade with 2 or 3 of their guys, and also you can echo it. So something you can do is if you need to deal 4 damage to everything, you can play an Echo Sheep. Explosive Sheep, Echo of Medivh, play the second one, and then ping one of them. That's 10 mana, and then it deals 4 damage to everything.
Or if they have a mirror image out in a Knife Juggler, you can cast your Sheep, copies it, Knife Juggler Sheep.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, like Flame Strike in an aggro format is pretty slow. It can be pretty slow, and you can definitely die before getting Flame Strike out. So that makes a lot of sense. Like, Patron didn't really kill you until after turn 7, so I can understand Flame Strike not gonna see as much play for the slower mage decks anyway.
Definitely, because those decks also had cards like Ice Block. So like you weren't gonna die if they like went ham on you.
Yeah.
So like you could blow everything up. For actually a little while we actually saw some people playing mech mage decks. Not particularly good in those decks,
Very
but like
briefly.
sometimes people would just go like ham on you. And that's actually one of our honorable mentions is for the getting better list is mechs because of cards like this getting worse. And Grim Patron being worse is the fact that you can have a bunch of dudes in play, and now you're not as afraid of someone randomly running Flame Strike or Shadow Flame and cards like that, because everyone wanted an answer to the best deck in the format. And even if you don't agree with it being the best deck in the format, a lot of people think that way because Tempo Storm has their meta shock. So that deck was like the supreme ruler on that. So people are trying to at least play one card that can help them get rid of a board full of patrons. And so Mech Mage and Tempo Mage, some decks like that were running one Flame Strike. So maybe they'll draw like his patron. So they can blow up the entire board. So
especially in tournament play, I've noticed too, like Flame Strike was like in a lot of the tournament mech mages decks, at least back before TGT and stuff. So that makes sense that we're probably going to go back to not seeing Flame Strike as heavily in the mech decks, and then not heavily in general. So I definitely do agree that we'll see a lot more mech, which should be fun. I mean, I personally liked mech. It'll be nice to see some more mech.
I didn't.
I mean, I like Mech Shaman. Come on, let's be honest.
All I know is that when someone curves out insanely against me, and then like Goblin Blast Mages my perfect RNG and kills all of my dudes, I want to set my computer on fire.
That's because you're bad. If you're good, RNG will go your way.
All right, so number 9 you guys have is Light Bomb, which I find really, really interesting because Light Bomb just seems like an insane card in Priest, period. Like, that card's awesome. Like, I don't...
it is in fact awesome. The big thing with Light Bomb is that 6 mana is a fair amount. It's not a ton.
It's not as much as 7, though.
It's not. 2, it does affect your own minions. So that is something you have to be careful about. Because Light Bomb can be really awkward, where it might be the only way you have to kill their Dr. Boom, but in doing so, you might actually end up having to kill a couple of your own minions as well. So Light Bomb can be very awkward in that sense. Honestly, Light Bomb will continue to see play, I think, as a one-of in most Control Priest decks, and maybe even in Dragon Priest, because I still think the card is fine, but a lot of the power of this card was being able to answer all of the Grim Patrons, as well as Frothing Berserkers, if they were played.
So, my deck doesn't run this card. Very surprising. The reason it doesn't run it is because the only matchup you really want it is against Handlock.
Yeah.
As a control priest. If you're really worried about Handlock, then there are much better cards that you can play for it, like Mind Blast and Harrison. Mind Blast seems really like, why would you play that control priest? What are you doing with your life? Card doesn't seem that good. But like that's the way you beat Handlock, because you can get them to 10, and then they're just like, dude, taunt up, go, and then like you just have Mind Blast.
Yeah.
So like it seems like it's like the worst card ever. Trust me, it is. But like it's like some of the cards on this list. A lot of people were playing some of these cards because they were just good against Patron.
Yep.
So like if you're looking for certain cards to beat certain things, I think in Dragon Priest it stays in there. But like I'm not looking to play this card anymore. I'm super happy that I don't have to, because it just feels like such a bad tempo swing. Because like Holy Nova is just better.
Holy Nova is absolutely phenomenal. Yeah.
Yeah, but what about like Handlock?
Handlock?
The thing with Handlock,
Light Bomb just crushes Handlock, and the new I'm seeing Demon Handlock get played a little bit more again, and so like.
And actually, a big thing with Demon Handlock is Light Bomb actually doesn't kill a lot of the demons. It kills Mal'Ganis. It kills
imps. Nerd.
It kills 1/1s. Yes, it doesn't kill.
Demon Handlock doesn't play imps right now. Demon Handlock is just.
A lot of the versions actually play Imp King Boss.
Better. No, they don't.
Not recently.
Not anymore, at least.
A lot of the recent lists I've seen from like Strife Crow and stuff have been just 1 Doomguard, 1 Mal'Ganis, 2 Void Callers, or Draxus for your demons.
That sounds about right.
But like, you kill all the giants, which is...
You do kill all the giants.
Really
one thing that's notable is that a lot of the decks have actually started to cut 1 Mountain Giant from the deck. I dislike that personally, because, I mean, Mountain Giant, come on, it's an 8/8. But the big thing is that you find yourself in a position a lot more where you're playing things out early, which makes it hard to actually play your Mountain Giant on turn 4. So it's completely reasonable.
I actually cut both Mountain Giants for a little while, and like, yeah, it does seem weird, but sometimes you sit there and you're just like, on turn 4 you play like a giant or something like that. That's where it's like really insanely good. But then there's those moments where like you have a Void Caller in play and you draw it and you're just like, oh god,
yeah,
it's all over my face. And so I started putting Fearsome Doomguard into my deck, which also doesn't get hit by Light Bomb. Look at that. But against that version of the deck, Light Bomb is only good against the giants. Like, it's not bad to be good against those, but since you're like already running like death and stuff, it like
right.
You don't need to.
And of course, you also have the option of playing like Big Game Hunter, et cetera, et cetera. But the two Shadow Word Deaths are really what you're going to lean on in that matchup.
Not everyone plays 2 Shadow Word Deaths though. Like I think 1 Shadow Word Death, 1 Light Bomb is way better than 2, just because Light Bomb's going to hit way more than 1 Shadow Word.
So the thing is like the fact that in Dragon Priest it's not as big, but a lot of the cards that you're resorting to now are like Ragnaros, Sylvanas, where you don't really want them to die to Light Bomb. And yeah, you may sit there and be like, but like you're playing on turn 6 when you're playing Sylvanas. But like the fact that like Death is always just really, really good in any matchup, because like if someone plays a Ysera against you, you're just screwed. But like if someone plays a what's its face? The one dragon.
Yes.
Alex
Shaza? Yeah.
You can death it, and so like you're not completely screwed. Yeah, you're probably still screwed because they're gonna fireball, frostbolt you. But like that's just things that happen. So like the fact that like death is always live. So like against cards like Sylvanas and things like that. And that Dark Bomb isn't always going to kill things like Ysera, which death isn't going to either. But like.
But you have other ways of dealing with Ysera. I'm actually interested to see, are you in your Control Priest playing the Shrinkmeister Cabal Priest combo?
Yes. I'm not playing Shadow Word Pain.
Really?
Shower Pain just seems a little too clunky in the early game because, like, yeah, it does kill something, but like the version of my deck, you can't really just be like, I'm gonna kill your thing on turn 2 and then just like do stuff later. I actually cut a bunch of the early game, like Live the Naru's. Well, not Live the Naru's not an early game card, but
Yeah.
like for like the bigger end, because I feel like Priest can actually hang with the early game, definitely with cards like Young Pyro. Um, and Thought Steal and things like that.
Well, because
So
you have
really
access
have
to a lot of card advantage, right? Between Holy
yeah.
Nova, Wild Pyromancer, and the Akanaya Soul Priest Circle of Healing. You know, there's a lot of ways for you to just clear minions.
I also think that this is the second best deck in the late game next to Control Warrior because you do get Justicar Trueheart. Justicar Trueheart with those two hero powers is just such a big game with Akanai Soul Priest and Tick Guy, Injured Blade Master. That heal him to full.
Yeah.
So I feel like you don't really need Light Bomb against like those decks. Definitely because you have Sylvanas and Ragnaros. I really like Ragnaros right now. May get better, may get worse. Who knows? But I think dealing 8 randomly is really good right now. And the fact that it's like it dies to your Light Bomb, which like like the dream scenarios that you just played on turn 6 and it kills everything. But then like you're gonna have games where you're like you draw and you're like, well, I'm still gonna Cabal Shadow Priest this turn, and they're like, oh, I want to play Doctor Boom this turn, and then oh, I want to play Ragnaros this turn. So it just also fits really awkwardly into the curve and everything. Definitely because it's hard to sit, like want a 6-drop in the deck whenever you have Sylvanas and double Cabal Shadow Priest. So like it's another thing like Flame Strike where like it just doesn't fit well where you want it to fit well. Because Flame Strike, great card. Light Bomb, great card, like no doubt. But like in that version of the deck where you run Sylvanas, because in the control version you want Sylvanas, no matter what, it's just really awkward. Definitely whenever you run to really curve out. In the Dragon version of the deck, like you go up to Sylvanas and Cabal Shadow Priest, but then you don't have a 7-8 drop, so it can fill in those 7-8 drop slots to where you want to board white to where you can go into the Ysera. So it's just it works awkwardly on the curve and everything. Like that's just been my experience with it. If you like the card, definitely run it. Try out whatever list you want. Change things up. But like it does get a little worse. In no way is the card a bad card, but like it did technically get worse.
Yeah.
Makes sense. All right. So number 8, we have a pretty interesting card. I would say a card that personally, I love this card. I love it in Arena. I love this card mainly in Arena. Sabotage, the Rogue Epic. I have not seen this in Constructed, to be honest. I would say
that's
I have never seen this in Constructed.
That's because none of the good players are playing Rogue.
It's because Rogue sucks, period, because you have one deck type. It's
honestly,
else.
I think this is the card that made Rogue viable at all while Grim Patron was a thing, because when you're playing Rogue, you really don't want to play cards like Acidic Swamp Ooze or Harrison Jones because they really just don't fit with what you're doing. But you have to have access to some disruption for what the Patron Warrior deck was trying to do. And I think this was the best card that Rogue had access to as far as that goes. And just like being able to like coin Sabotage on turn 4 to kill like an Acolyte of Pain and their Fiery Wind Axe, or just saving this for a Despite at any point in time, was such a big swing. And you saw that's how oftentimes Patron Warrior lost games, is by having their Despite destroyed a turn or two before they wanted to combo off, because that was such a big part of doing that, was having a Whirlwind effect that was free the turn that you were comboing. And now that Grim Patron Warrior is gone, I think that this card...
Hallelujah. Hallelujah.
Is why play it. Why play this card? Why? There's no point.
1 mana less Assassinate, that's random, and then combo to destroy what weapons do you
I mean, and of course,
destroying?
with expecting Paladin to be popular, True Silver Champion is going to see a lot of play, and
So about
I
that
mean,
actually, so the problem with this card is that against Patron it was the best card because they would play Emperor Tharson. They would be like, "Yeah, I'm ready to go. Let's do this," and then you were like, "I'll destroy your Death Spy and destroy your Emperor Tharson,"
for
and then
4
they
mana.
can't win anymore.
Yeah.
They just can't even win anymore, and everything's bad, and everything looks good for you. I think the biggest part about this card and the fact that no, it's not gonna see play.
It won't.
Like, because, like, what are you gonna do? Oh, you're true silver champion. Oh, let's do this.
Right, but
Sabotage, and then he destroys their 1/1.
yeah,
and their
yeah,
and their
that's the big
weapon, and
thing.
you're just like,
If you could choose the minion it destroyed with this card, I think it would be sweet and definitely would see play.
A white card would
this
be
card was
insane then, because you have
It's a white
assassinate.
cost one less than assassinate.
Yeah, it's a one less costing assassinate
Yeah.
with combo.
And definitely there will be situations in which this is fine, especially.
Guys, I figured it out. This card's still gonna see play. I figured it out, Alex. So, turn 10. You play Neferian, get prep sabotage.
There we go. We broke the meta.
We broke the meta.
Alright, so if for some odd reason you're playing against Oil Rogue and Unifarian and get prep sabotage.
Well, why do you say that like no one's going to play Oil Rogue?
I don't think Oil Rogue's good. So.
I think Oil Rogue's actually fine.
I mean, it's like everyone knows what you're doing, though, is my issue with it. And it's
So
like,
how do they stop you?
it's so lame.
You just and that's actually the one situation I wanted to talk about in which I could see this card being good is when you around turn 6 to 7, mostly 7, if you Blade Flurry to clear their board and they slam a Ragnaros, then this actually is just Assassinate for 4 mana, which is sweet. Or if they slam a Ysera or something. But with that being said, I think that's too narrow of a scenario to warrant actually putting this card in your deck.
Yeah, I agree.
It's that moment that your opponent casts Unleash the Hounds and you have this in your hand, and you're just like, I hate every ally.
You're like, oh, kill one of your 1/1s and your Evil Hornbow, I guess. Like,
There's that one counter.
Yeah. So yeah, I think it was good. It was actually like the only card that like made Rogue viable before, and now it's unplayable. So there you go.
I mean, yeah. So short, and sweet, and simple. Like sabotage is just not too much of a conversation piece, but this one could be. So next up, you guys said Divine Favor, which I totally agree with, to be honest.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and this one is fairly straightforward. The matchup where Divine Favor was best was Patron Warrior, because a lot of the times they just never played cards and always had like 9 to 10 cards in their hand.
And we're like battle raging for like 1,000 cards. You feel like.
and a lot of their cards cycled. So when you drew this card against them, you were just like, I can't lose because I'm just going to flood the board early and then draw 9 cards. And how does Patron win at that point?
Yeah, and like of course, Divine Favor is still good. Like, there's still decks
there are, and it's obviously it's very good against Handlock still, and it's reasonably good against Control Warrior, but.
And Freeze Mage.
But I expect a lot of the decks that are going to be popular at the start here are going to be fairly aggressive decks, where at the most Divine Favor might draw you 2 or 3 cards.
Or 0, basically.
Or 0, exactly.
Yeah.
And that's always the problem with this card, is that sometimes, especially if you draw 2 of them early, where you're just like, one of them's probably never getting cast the whole game. And one of them might draw 2 cards, and so I think, and
one card in their hand, and you need to cast both of them.
Right. So I think the card is still fine, and I think it'll still see play. I do know a lot of Secret Paladin players have been cutting to 1 in their deck, and then instead of doing that and going all in on like the early aggro, have been curving up to cards like Dr. Boom and Tyrion, even Ragnaros sometimes. I think it would be totally reasonable for Secret Paladins to cut this deck to cut Divine Favor entirely and then go more on that strategy of having better late game cards. And then you don't have to play cards that are bad, like Argent Squire.
Argent Squire's a homie, man.
Yeah, I don't know what you're
first
talking about. It's Divine Shield.
Yeah, that card
Okay.
needs to be nerfed.
Yeah,
It needs to give
1/1
all
Divine
your
Shield.
creatures with
Sweet,
charge
sweet
plus 1
1/1.
attack.
Sweet 1/1, bro.
Whoa, Argent Squire should give all your creatures a Divine Shield plus 1 attack.
Totally should.
Meta. Actually, Alex with the Divine Favor talk here. So, of course, this card is still a playable card. It's just like Light Bomb. It's just but it did get worse. Whenever you look at a deck that is leaving the format depth, you look at the decks that are going to replace it, right? So, Control Warrior, people who like Warrior are just going to stick to Warrior and play Control Warrior. It's not as good against it. The deck that I actually think will replace it is going to be a Tempo deck, probably Tempo Mage. I think that it's definitely not as good against them. Definitely if they're spellbendering it to you, right? So like those decks, it's not going to be as good against. So like whenever you look at the cards that are replacing them in the format, it's not like Handlock went away. Handlock was always there. So like it's not getting like so bad that why would you ever play this card? It's just like all the decks that are already in the format are still there. The best decks were always Druid and Handlock and Patron. Like those were the best 3 decks. Yeah, you can play something different. You know, I understand being bad and stuff, but but like with one of those decks leaving, if a Tempo deck or Secret Paladin steps in, the card's just not as good. So I actually moved to one before Patron getting out because I just never wanted to draw 2. I run the Leroy with Blessing of Might, Blessing of Kings. So like you just have a bunch of burst damage.
Yeah.
Because whenever you're playing ladder, which for laddering reason, if I went to a tournament, I'd probably play the Doctor of Interior version. But for laddering, I just want a deck that can go. So Blessing of Might with Argent Squire is pretty good. And you need to learn how to be a good good Hearthstone player. Argent Squire's a homie. Always been a homie.
I mean, don't get me wrong. I've played Argent Squire in plenty of decks, but I've never felt good about it.
What? How can you not feel good about Blessing of Mighting it? It feels so good.
Because I can't feel good about playing Blessing of Might in my deck either.
You put it on to show many buttons.
I mean, obviously, Hopper just does not like playing Paladin. Like,
I actually do like playing Paladin.
I hate Paladin.
I'm a really big fan of the mid-range Paladin deck. I've been playing that a fair
Hopper
bit.
doesn't like going to the
Dude. So I played a Murloc Knight. I was playing a game. I have to tell this story because it's phenomenal. Played a Murloc Knight, hero powered, got another Murloc Knight. Passed the turn, my opponent didn't kill either of them. Hero powered again, got a third Murloc Knight and an old Murkai, and I was like, I don't think I could possibly lose this game.
I got Blind Strike you, right?
No, he just conceded on his next turn.
Divine Favor?
What?
The Divine Favor?
Nope.
Oh, damn. This guy's bad.
Cool. So, alright, Divine Favor makes sense of being slightly worse. We're just probably going to shift more towards aggro for a little bit, and card sucks against aggro.
And the fact that all of the aggro decks want to be able to curve into larger things for endgame.
Yeah, and like now since Secret Pally doesn't have to worry about its sort of bad matchup with Grim Patron, it just doesn't need Divine Favor anymore.
It was all over your face and everything.
So next on the list we have Starfall, which is, I'm gonna say, like Sabotage, another card I have not seen in a very long time, except from that joking, cutesy Mill Druid deck. So what's up with that, guys?
The deal with go ahead, sorry.
I just want to say real quick that Mildred isn't a joke. So it's like one of those things that's like Grim Patron. The first Grim Patron started. The reason Grim Patron had the booming start was the fact that no one knew what you're running, because you'd be playing people thought you were playing Control Warrior. So, like, no one thought that you were playing Patron. So, like, that's the thing that Mildred gets from that, is the fact that, no one knows what you're playing. So people are going to play, I know you've done it, Alec, you play your Manti Totem, You feel good about yourself. You're like,
Oh,
I'm
yeah.
gonna kill some cards, and then it never dies, and you lose the game.
Yep.
So like,
Oh yeah, of course. I'm not saying the deck's bad. I'm just saying it's cutesy.
yeah,
It's more
yeah,
cutesy.
yeah. Of course, it's not tier 1, but like I just want to say, don't take that joke as a deck because like that deck will get you sometimes.
I will take that joke as a deck.
But we won't
That
take
joke
that
is a
deck
deck?
as a joke.
No, but like honestly, like yeah, there are some joke decks out there. But like this one is like one that like you may think that it's bad, but like whenever you lose to it, you lose really really hard, and it seems like you're ahead the entire game.
Oh, and
So
it's
yeah, I just
miserable.
wanted to,
Yeah.
It's miserable.
I just wanted to say that real quick because like the deck is really cool, and Starfall is a very important card in that deck because you have poison seeds. But people were playing this card because of Blood Mage Thalanos.
Yeah. Woo!
Yeah,
Because
here.
Druid has the unfortunate circumstance of not having any cards at all ever in their entire class that are good at killing Grim Patrons. You sit there and you're like, well, I have a Wrath which can kill one of them. I have a Living Roots which can kill one of them. And I have this swipe that can kill one of them and make 3 more of them. and you're just like, I don't really know what to do. So a lot of Druid players were resorting to Starfall out of sheer panic, really, as something because when you're playing Patron Warrior, that's how you beat Druid. Is you forgot about your Frothing Berserkers and as soon as possible, even as early as turn 6, you just made as many Grim Patrons as you could and said go. And a lot of the time, they would just
4.
lose.
You made 4 because if they did swipe, you would still get patrons.
Yeah.
Never made 7 patrons. You never did.
Yeah, don't make 7.
You tried to make 4.
Yeah. 4. And a lot of the times, Druid just couldn't beat it because they had no way of actually clearing all of your patrons off the board. So Starfall... with Blood Mage Thalanos was a way that people were actually doing that.
Would you say that Starfall's better now though, since Patron's gone? Since you don't need to play with spell power anymore. You could just play Starfall for Starfall.
Why?
But
why?
Isn't Swipe just better? Like,
I mean, of course, Swipe's just better.
The big thing is that like
to give Starfall, play devil's advocate a little bit for Starfall. It's like you can play by itself now.
Well,
and have an extra deck.
The big thing is that like paying 5 mana for 2 damage to everything is pretty overcosted. And like you just don't really need to do that because Druid actually already has a lot of effective removal, and then they just have really big creatures. So this kind of effect is not really necessary in that deck, unless your opponent is like flooding the board in 1 turn with a lot of creatures.
I mean, it can also deal 5 damage to something.
Yeah, but like,
There's also a card that costs the exact same amount if we're looking for that type of effect that draws a card.
Yeah.
It's 6 mana.
6 mana, he still draws a card. Drawing cards is good.
1 mana draw card, I'll take it.
So the thing about the spell power is like Blood Mage Thalanos was like in the older Druid decks at least. It's not in this day and age Druid decks. But you still get Azure Drakes. Azure Drake was like the best card for this card is because you'd play it on turn 5, turn 6. Oh, hey, look at this. But the reason I actually think it gets worse is because Swipe gets better. Because we were talking about this like Paladin decks, right? So like Muster for Battle, after you played your Shield Mini-Bot and I had to attack it with my hero power because life sucks, then you can just swipe it. So like, yeah, it sucks, but like,
yeah.
Of course, it's like if you're looking at just like raw power level, Starfall may be better, but like with cards like Pilot Shredder and Muster for Battle, Swipe just seems so powerful right now.
Well, the main thing is that like the plan for Druid decks, at least the mid range Druid decks that we know and love, and not this aggro Druid bullshit.
We don't love those decks. That deck's miserable to play against.
Their game plan is to, in the early game, use their effective removal to make sure that you can't build up a board presence. And then once they get to the mid to late game, their entire plan is just to outclass the creatures that you're playing with their own, right? Like their creatures are just always going to be better than yours.
That's not true.
I mean, pretty much.
No, it gained glass OP.
No. And so this kind of a card just doesn't really fit well into that strategy because they want all of their removal to be cheap and effective early game. Because as far as late game removal is concerned, they don't really need it. Really, all you want is one big game hunter for, big game hunter things. But
big game hunter things.
Yeah.
Also, it costs 5 mana,
Mhm.
and 5 mana is a really heated spot in that deck.
Yeah.
With Belchers, Druid of the Claws, people switching between those two.
Yeah.
You have what's that kitty guy name? Lotheb.
Lotheb.
So
It's a good
you
card.
also have a bunch of five spots going on there, and at your 4 spots where swipe is just insane, the only one that you have Keeper and Pilot Shredder. So it's not as heated at the 4 spot, and then at the 3 spot you have removal. So you don't want to overload too much on removal, and swipe just fits in perfectly with the curve. If you ever are just sitting there and you're like, man, I really need a board clear at 5, and I want to take out a Druid of the Claw, Belcher, then Starfall is okay. If that's what you're looking for, if that's the card you're like, man, I need this right now, Starfall will fit in perfectly. But of course, this card got a lot worse without Patron in the format.
Yeah.
Because this is what people were turning to. So it's kind of like the Mildred thing, as I said. People are just like, oh, you're playing Druid? Well, I'm going to make 4 Patrons. And then you're just like, oh, my Azure Drake is still in play. I got you. So it was there for the kind of that surprise factor that lets you win games, because sometimes those will win you games in Hearthstone. Is someone just being like, oh, he doesn't have the sabotage, and then they're like, oh, you have ET and that guy in play. Well, I'm gonna prep sabotage, GG, bro. So it was that surprise factor thing also. Not the best card, but it helped a little bit with that matchup because it was that surprising thing.
Cool. So next on your guys' list is another shocker.
This card's surprising.
Shocker.
Emperor
Tharson.
So, preface. This card is still insane.
Yeah, this card is still up, you guys. Don't worry. Don't.
But it's so far down the list. What?
Oh my god.
The main thing is that Emperor Tharson's a great card, right?
Yeah.
And no matter what deck it's in, it's going to be good. But in none of the decks that it's going to be in now is it going to be anywhere close to as good as it was in Patron Warrior. Because the things that this card did in Patron Warrior just made me want to vomit everywhere. and when I play it in any other deck, it's like, all right, cool.
So what you're saying is you don't like just losing because your opponent plays Emperor Tharson, and then before you know it, you took 50 to the face.
Exactly.
Well, no, I was completely fine with that because I was the one doing it. Let's be fair here. But on stat wise, the card's pretty good. A 5/5 mana or 5/5 for 6 mana is not kind of poor. You look at Lotheb, it doesn't line up well against Lotheb and things like that. But the thing is whenever the warrior casts this card, it doesn't matter if they played Bash in that game. You're just like, oh god, I hope to god this is a Patron Warrior. And then you found out it was Patron Warrior and you just lost.
Well, yeah. A main thing is that they play it, you have to kill it that turn or you lose. And even if you do kill it that turn, you still probably lose.
Yeah, and which isn't true with every deck. I played against a Druid deck the other day with Aggro Druid. It seemed pretty sweet. And I had a double Innervate draw. And if you didn't know, the reason Druid is so good with Innervate is because they have enchantment floors that allow you to draw back up.
Yeah.
Well, that's not how Aggro Druid does it. It goes, well, here's some things, hopefully you can't deal with it. And I was sitting there, and I was just like, I don't think there's a way I win this game. And I got a Fell Reaper hit in, and got him to 3. And still didn't really think I had a way to kill him unless I drew Swipe. And my opponent had Emperor Tharson in play for 4 turns. And if that was Patron, I guarantee you I would have just been insta-dead. he would have screenshot it, sent it to his mom. His mom would have gotten out the camera. Like, he would have been unzipping his pants. Like, it would just been bad. But, like, he was playing Druid, so it wasn't as good. Yeah, it's still good. Of course, yeah, he got 12 men off everything. But, like, if it was Patron Warrior, I would have lost that game. But I ended up drawing out to a Force of Nature to kill him. So, like,
Right.
yeah, of course, the cards isn't much worse, but, like,
because the power level of this card is based on two things. The first is how many cards are in your hand when Emperor Tharson is activating, and the second is how important is it that you are playing those cards at a discount. In a deck like Druid, even if you get 1 mana off of all of your cards, the likelihood is that you're still only going to be able to play 1 card a turn, right? Because the average mana cost, right? Well, yeah, but the average mana cost of the cards in that deck are fairly high. The same goes for decks like Control Warrior, Handlock, etc. But the thing that made this card insane in Patron Warrior is that you were already planning on playing 3 to 4 spells in a turn. But if you had Emperor Tharson, you could bump that up to like 5 to 7 spells in 1 turn. And that's really what made this card so insane.
And the fact that it had a low curve. So yeah, like, of course, Emperor Tharson's gonna still be insane. We're not saying that, like, oh my god, like, no one buy Black Rock Mountain, the card is awful. The card is still great. Like, you know, when you cast it, you're gonna feel good about yourself. If you season play for another turn, you're gonna feel good about yourself. But it's not gonna be the calling your mom to get the video camera type thing whenever your opponent lets it live. It's gonna be the, oh sweet, there's still, like, this is still a game. Like,
whenever try to win.
Yeah, it's not like, oh god, like, grid patron, frothing, like, get in your face. It's now going to be like, I'm still going to have to work to try to get this win. I can still possibly lose this game. So, like, and the biggest thing is like, whenever this card came out, everyone was like, it needs to be nerfed, it needs to be nerfed. It's because of Patron. Patron was always the deck, because everyone didn't care if you got like 4 or 5 mana off your Molten Giants and Sea Giants and things like that. Everyone was like, oh my god, he just got a 15 mana discount for 6 mana that now he's going to kill me with. So everyone's like, this card needs to be nerfed, this card needs to be nerfed. And that's going to be great to see, like, everyone's like, this needs to be a battle cry. It's like, like, this card is just good now. It's just another, it's like Sylvanas. It's just another good card.
I would say that this card is now essentially right on the same power level as most of the other good legendary 6-drops.
Yeah. So still a great card, got a little bit worse though.
Yeah.
Awesome. So, I'd say this one's pretty self-explanatory. We don't need to spend too much time on it, but Blood Mage Thalnos, the 1/1 for 2 +1 spell damage, death rattle, draw a card. Yep. Spell damage. Let's just be honest, spell damage.
Oh, the draw card is sweet.
That's why it was the one played, right? Because it's a 1/1. It's not as good as Cabal Geomancer, right? Cabal Geomancer, as we know, is OP.
I mean, I'm not gonna lie. The number of times that I've played Blood Mage Thalnos on turn 2, just hoping that my opponent would kill it so I can draw a card, is probably way too high.
But to be fair, the one thing I want to say is this card will probably see more play because you can actually cast rogue cards now.
Yeah,
because rogue is really good.
Shaman cards.
But like, the card got significantly worse in the
Shaman cards.
Whoa, we all know Shaman's my favorite deck. I mean, Overboard.
Yeah.
Over gay. So the thing is that the fact that Blood Mage Thalnos, I still can't get with Shaman. Shaman's just so bad. I'm sorry. It's just my heart hurts. The fact that you can cast rogue cards now, why would you play Blood Mage? The fact that Blood Mage has always just been a really, really good and important part to rogue, it's going to see more play. But like, now you're not going to see it in a bunch of weird decks and things like that.
You're not going to see this card in Druid randomly. You're not going to see this card in Warlock randomly or Paladin. You know, it's just the reason that this card was in those decks is to make the 2 damage to everything, deal free to everything, and kill patrons.
Yeah. So, I mean,
Also, Shaman is in a class, by the way, guys. It's like Warrior and Arena, it just doesn't exist.
Whoa.
So yeah,
It's
like,
just,
1v1 me. I'll play Shaman.
Blood Mage
Okay.
is just, like I said, pretty obvious. Like,
Yep.
+1 spell damage,
Fairly
just throw it
straightforward.
into a bunch of decks randomly just to get that +1 spell damage to 2 damage AoE spells. So, totally makes sense of it just slightly being worse or, not being as good anymore because, well, you don't need them. You don't need to play Blood Mage. So, cool.
pretty.
Alright, so we're getting into the top 3 now. Top 3
Top
worst. Top 3 cards that have gotten worse. And so number 3, Armor Smith.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
Totally makes sense.
So
I mean, I'm surprised Whirlwind isn't on this list, to be honest. But
well, so we kind of didn't want to talk about cards that like were only ever good because they were in Patreon and they like weren't in any other decks. The reason that I wanted to talk about this card is because this card has been a staple in Control Warrior since the beginning of the game. And honestly, I've never really liked that because the potential that this card has to be incredible is just not utilized in Control Warrior. Because for one, you don't play that many minions. And for 2, generally your minions don't take that much damage. And so, for the most part, this card was just something that you played because it was the best option that you really had to combat the really aggressive strategies. But generally, it was a 2-mana card that's going to trade with one of their guys and maybe gain like 3 or 4 armor, which is fine because it's what the deck was looking for. But what I liked about Patron Warrior was how everyone saw that this card has way more potential than that. This card is so much better than just being a 2-mana trade with a guy and gain 3 armor. And that this card has the potential to actually just be insane. And unfortunately, we're just not going to see that anymore. And this card is going to go back to being just trade with a guy, gain 3 for 2, which I mean, again, that's fine, but yeah,
Not as good.
it's not nearly as good.
Yeah. So whenever we were talking about this list, we wanted to make a thing very clear that like there are still going to be cards on this list that are still good. The biggest criteria for us is that we didn't want to put too many cards from Patreon on here, but we felt like it was super important to talk about Emperor Tharson and Armor Smith. We wanted to put them somewhere on the list, and Armor Smith is one of the ones that we want to talk about because like it's just not as insane as it used to be, and Emperor Tharson, as we just talked about, and like Armor Smith is of course still going to be played and things like that. You're still going to be pinging it with your stuff and like killing something, but you're not. It's so whenever Black Rock Mountain came out, Emperor Tharson was the hottest card, right? And it looked like Freeze Mage just like had the best of both worlds, right? All of your stuff was going to cost less. You're going to be able to Fireball, Frostbolt, Ice Lance them to the face and things like that. But it didn't matter because your opponent had 5,000 armor because they're playing Patron. And so like the fact that this card is much worse, I think we will see a rise of the Freeze Mage. Thank you. And also, like, this card was just insane. I played a lot of Patron, and you'd sometimes play this card, and you begin Hunter, and you're like 2 health, and you're just like, man, let's see how much armor I can gain. And then you end up with like 50 armor, and you're like, okay, bro, come at me. The card is still a good card. It's like Emperor Tharson. This card was bonkers in that deck. Now it's a good card.
It's average. Yeah, it's just average.
I mean, yeah, we're not going to see the days of going to 20, 30, 40 armor off of...
No.
Well, not off of Armor Smith.
Like, not off of Armor Smith.
I definitely was at like 45 armor playing Control Warrior the other day, but...
Of course.
Yeah. I definitely had someone do that to me, and then I killed them with Frothing Berserkers. But okay.
So, number 2, the second card that you guys believe got worse is a card I personally don't really like that much. I know a lot of people are a big fan of it. I think the
It's so
art's super
bad.
cool, but I don't like the card. And it's interesting that it got worse because it's shocking that card can get worse. And this might
Wow.
this is gonna offend some people, I think, but
Yes, let the hate
and
flow
by
through
like
you.
offend people, we're gonna be offending Dragon Priest people. Chilma, Chilma, you guys think got worse? Shocker, because I didn't think it any worse.
I didn't think the card was good either. That card's so
Let's talk about it.
bad.
Let's talk about
Okay,
Chilma.
okay.
Chilma, man.
So there's, I want to say that this card is cost 7, right? This card cost 7, right?
It
Am I
does.
right?
Yeah.
Okay, there's Doctor Boom at 7, right? No, let's just put these two cards up next to each other, right? So Doctor Boom, amazing card, probably one of the best cards in the game, in my opinion. Best 7 drop. I don't know if anyone wants to disagree.
War Golem. Hello.
Oh, my double wisp! That cost 7 also.
Yeah, War Golem Double Wisp. There we go. That's
Like
that's
Doctor
Doctor Boom for 3 cards.
bonkers card. Gives you 2 1/1s that deal 8 damage to their face, in my opinion, and just bonkers.
Yeah, alright, so Chilma,
Now,
it's a 6/6 for
Let's
7.
talk about
It's
Chilmon. It's a 6/6 or 7 with bad stats. Okay, and like it has a condition, guys. Okay, ready for this? If you're holding a dragon, really? Okay.
When am I
Your face
not
roll.
holding a dragon?
Yeah. Deal 3 damage to everything. That's a death rattle.
Yeah.
Also, by the way, it can get silenced.
Yes.
If Dr. Boom gets silenced, you still get 2 boom bombs.
Yeah. A big thing that I have with this card.
Like, it just seems so bad.
Obviously, you're only playing this card if you're playing a dragon strategy, and that means that generally your deck is fairly minion heavy.
There was people were playing it in some dragon decks with like 3 dragons outside of him.
Well,
I'm not saying, yeah, like
yeah. For the most part,
I'm just stating some.
Yeah,
like,
for the most part, you're playing this card in a deck that's fairly minion heavy, because for one, you have to have a lot of dragons, and then you also want to be playing the other cards that synergize with dragons. And this guy's just going to kill all of your own minions.
I think the strongest card this place has is in a deck with no other dragons.
Yeah.
And, like, you may laugh at
You
that,
just
but,
next level your opponent.
You'll cast against somebody and they'll be like, I'm gonna lose all my 3/3s. So they'll send their 3/3s into it, and they'll keep their 6/6, and you'll be like, sweet.
Yep.
I just got your 2 3/3s. I don't care about your, or you won't get their Doctor Boom, but you killed their boom bots the turn before, and then you'll just be like, oh, okay, you have Doctor Boom, BGH it, go, get wrecked, nerd.
Yeah,
So
no,
like, if you're trying to outlevel someone, this card is like the sweetest card to go with.
No, in general, this card was only good because of the threat to Patron.
Yeah, you had to get
it was extremely hard for Patron to deal with this card because if you just played it before they went off, the only way that they could kill it really was with an execute, which means that first they had to play a whirlwind effect, which means that's one less whirlwind effect for when they're going off, which a lot of the time made a big difference as to whether you were dead or not dead. So it was really good against Patron. It's really not good against anything else.
Yeah, I mean, like 3 damage to your creatures, that can really suck, man. Like,
it's the only time this is good is if you drop it on a board where for whatever reason you have no creatures in play and they do.
Yeah.
And
that's just a losing. That's like you're at that point. If you're dropping it turn 7, you have an empty board. They don't. Like, that's just, you feel bad at that point. You feel like you're in a bad position.
Well, and there's just better cards that you could play at 7 mana that help you catch up on a board where you're behind.
Okay, so earlier we were talking about cards and priests, and I was like going on to rant about Light Bomb. But isn't Light Bomb just better? Because like if you're wanting to kill things with 3 health, they probably don't have that high of attack. Like there's only a few cards I can think about that are in the early game that you are actually going to want to kill. So, like, wouldn't you rather just play Light Bomb instead?
Yeah, and actually kill the big
Like,
stuff too. Like
yeah,
that's the
like,
issue is it deals damage to low health minions that at turn 7 are gonna either be gone or you're gonna be dead at that point. So
or you can Light Bomb away. And so, like, that's the thing is, like, even like though Light Bomb got worse, it didn't get as bad as the most garbage card that, in my opinion, ever.
Right.
I will say there is squeeze like, but the card got worse.
yeah, definitely. All right. So number one.
Okay, can I say something about this card real quick? Okay,
No.
one thing. This
Nope.
card belongs in a museum.
Yeah, this card.
Now let's give the viewers a second to think about it. Think about it. Okay, go ahead.
Because let's face it, what's the only deck that plays weapons that's actually good?
So moving
Because
on, our number
Rogue is
one card
bad.
is Gorehowl.
Our number one card is Harrison Jones. Harrison Jones.
Okay, as we know, this guy's Indiana Jones. I've dusted a golden one before, so that's the thing.
Bad
I
move.
have one now. But I opened the regular one and didn't want the golden one. I regret it now. Okay?
But you could have
So,
golden museum things.
But there's so what they actually need to have in the game is a museum where you can look at the cartridge.
Yeah, that'd be sweet.
Anyway, so
Okay, so this
pretty
card,
obvious.
this card, first off, it's a 5/4 for 5, right? So playing it just regularly isn't bad. This card is still a great card if like the main decks are like paladin or like weapon.
Rogue.
Well, the big thing though is actually like against secret paladin, it's not great because it's too slow.
Yeah.
It's
fine, but
like, you know, it's better against mid range where you know you can't handle the Tyrion very well.
I mean, this card,
you give them the weapon and you draw 3 cards.
Yeah, ever since the start of the game, this card has always been a sign function of how good it is, to the point where like sometimes it's so good that if you are not playing it in your deck, what are you doing? And then sometimes it's completely unplayable, and it just like is back and forth. And with Patron and Control Warrior being like 2 of the best decks, this card was phenomenal, and you should have just played it in pretty much every deck that you could. And now it's going to be fine, but a lot of decks are going to be looking for other options, because like we talked about earlier, the 5-drop slot is really, really competitive nowadays, with a lot of really good options at 5 for pretty much every class. So whether or not this makes the cut in all of the decks is going to be yet to be seen. Definitely some decks will still be playing it. Probably Control Warrior, there's still room for it somewhere. Druid, there's probably still room for it. But a lot of the decks, I think, are not going to be playing this card anymore.
Yeah, I mean, it totally makes sense. Like, Harrison Jones, super good against Patron, super good against Control Warrior, but not as good against like the Hunter decks. And currently the Secret Pally deck, it's just, let's face it, it's too slow.
Yeah,
you have to
intervene. You want to hit those weapons, and if you can't hit those weapons fast enough, you could just die. So,
well, it's not necessarily about hitting the weapons fast enough. It's about the fact that you're using your 5th turn to play a card that is getting you value, but it's not stemming the bleeding at all, because it's not really advancing your board state.
And with 4 toughness, it's
like you would against that deck, you would much rather spend your 5th turn playing a Sludge Belcher or a Druid of the Claw.
Yeah, agreed. I mean, Harrison Jones is another pretty self-explanatory one. You know, like, it's not as good anymore. You know, weapon. There's not as many weapon decks with the second, or as many as
that you want to hit.
That we care about hitting.
The biggest thing is that people didn't notice how to beat Patron. One of the cards that didn't make this list, which we actually kind of think is getting better, but the thing kind of got worse, is Lothep. Lothep and Harrison were like the big cards that just destroyed Patron. Because if you knew how to play that, it was so perfect. Because they were like, next turn I'm going to Whirlwind effect with my Death Spite and kill them. And then you'd be like, nope. I'm gonna Harrison, and I'm gonna load them. You go ahead, and they're just like, "Oh God, I actually am losing this game now." So
Mhm.
like, yeah, of course, like Harrison, it may still season play, because we don't know what. Of course, we don't know what the decks are. This is like the first day it's actually like the changes actually happen. So we really don't know what's gonna happen. But like that's just like what we think is gonna happen. Um, of course, like if people start playing Gorehound and things like that, and like mid-range
Or Oil
Paladin is the
Rogue.
best deck in the game, and then like Oil Rogue is suddenly like tier one. Yeah, Harrison's gonna be probably even better. But like, oh, I don't think that's gonna happen. Like,
Yeah.
Like right now, I do believe right now it's just going to be a lot of aggro while people sit and think about what do I really want to play now since Patron's gone. You know, we're going to see
yeah,
a good amount of aggro. Awesome, guys. Awesome. So, cards that got better. We have 10 of those also, and looking at this list now, and
Yeah.
this list looks sweet. And there's a lot of cards that I really like, and so let's just get right into
And I do
this.
have to say that narrowing down the list of cards that got better to the top 10 was significantly harder than narrowing down the list of cards that got worse.
I mean, it's
Because
totally true.
we had a list of probably like 30 to 35 cards that got better because of
I
the
had almost
change.
one card.
And
Because
and
Patron
we ended
Warrior
up
not existing anymore.
right, and we ended up having to cut it down to 10. And there were a lot of cards that we wanted to talk about that didn't end up making the list. So
Yeah, the big one was the mechs. All the mechs.
yeah,
All the mechs got significantly better because now Patron just isn't going into them. Like you look at cards like Annoyatron, and they're just infinitely better now. Mechs look, I think they're going to make a big comeback, and that's just like an honorary one that we wanted to say because, like,
yeah.
being a 3 or being a 2-3 is not that good, guys. Whenever it's Patron centric, so
Yeah. Awesome, awesome. So let's start off with the first one. I love this card personally.
I'm a big
Worgen
fan.
Infiltrator.
Of this card.
Scum.
Less whirlwinds, more
I love this
Worgens.
card. I have a long lasting relationship with Worgen Infiltrator.
Because you play Face Hunter, you scum.
Okay. What I love about this is the best one drop that you can possibly play in a meta where you think that there's just going to be a lot of creature heavy decks, because the beauty of this is you play this on turn 1 and your opponent plays a zombie chow on turn 1, you just don't have to attack with it. And you can wait until they play a minion that you want to trade your Worgen Infiltrator for, and then you do that. They go ahead and they play their Knife Juggler on turn 2, boom, you get to trade. Compared to one drops like Leper Gnome, where you play that on turn 1 and they play their Zombie Chow, and you're like, well, good game, concede.
I mean, not that bad. But
Obviously, yeah, but
Yeah.
this is for the longest time this had been considered a really, really good one drop for aggressive strategies because of the fact that stealth is actually very powerful. And if you don't think that it's a good time to bring it out of stealth because you're not going to be able to get a favorable trade with it, you just don't have to bring it out of stealth, and you can wait for a time where you think it's actually worthwhile. The problem with this card recently is that sometimes you would do that and then it just dies to Whirlwind and you never attacked with it and your life sucks.
well, also, like, it just doesn't really kill anything in Patron Warrior.
Yeah.
Everything's butt was way bigger than it could actually deal with properly.
Mhm.
This card. First off, I was the person on this to not be on the list, but I gave in because I agree with all the points he said. Without Whirlwind, it got a lot better. But I just want to state, I don't think that this card is as good as any of the other cards on the list. That's why I was willing to make a concession of it being number 10 on the list. I think all the cards got such a huge boost. I'm still reluctant to say that this would be on personally my top 10 list, but I had to give a concession somewhere because my number one, I'm so happy about that card that I just want to rant for like 7 days on it. But this card did get better. I definitely think it is going to see play in the aggressive hunter decks, and that's why I was willing to make a concession on this, because I do think the hunter decks are going to get better. I think the base hunter decks will at least play one, maybe two, but will at least, like, no matter what, play one. The only worry that I do have about this card is the fact that everyone's going to be playing Secret Paladin, because I think it's infinitely better, and people are going to be playing Flare. So, fun fact of the day: Flare takes away stealth. If people didn't know that, and since people are bad, they're going to play Flare. So yeah, the card's not going to be as good against bad players, but you should never think your opponent's bad.
Yeah.
So that's another card that isn't on our list that most people will actually say is getting a lot better as Flare. Technically, yes, the card is going to get better since Paladin's going to be one of the better decks.
Yeah,
Secret
just
Paladin.
don't play it.
But Flare, so you cast Flare against your Druid, and then you sit there and you're like, man, what am I doing with my life? Like, I just casted a Flare against a Druid. It's like Kazan Mystic. I'm like Kazan Mystic's bad. But yes,
but then you took their shade out of stealth and you kill it.
I mean, yeah, that's pretty reasonable.
Oh yeah! Why are you playing Shade? Why are you? No, I'm joking. Good. But
Flare hype train.
If Flare does become really good, just for people who are running Shade and Extremis, you can switch it to Druid of the Flame. It seems really bad, but like if you're playing against a bunch of Flares, you're probably playing against aggressive decks that can't beat Mysterious Challenger, which the mid-range version of that deck can, but the aggro version cannot. So if people are running Flare, you can run some Druid of the Flames. So like,
yep.
Yeah. It will help you with the aggressive aggro decks, and that's only if you're worried about Flare becoming a big thing. But this card, you shouldn't really worry about Flare, because if you're playing against Secret Paladin, the only card you actually want is we're going to talk about later, but this card is still a little bit better. I don't think it gets the leaps and bounds of the cards on the list, because I think Paladin does become better. But yeah, it did get a lot better with the fact that aggro hunter can be played now. So that's the big reason I see it being better. I don't think you're really playing too many other different decks because there's better one drops for what that deck's trying to accomplish. But this card is like the perfect card for Hunter, because it's like
perfect for Hunter. Honestly, I think that this is it could be a really good addition to Paladin as well.
So with Paladin, the
Argent Squire.
If you're playing the art.
It depends what version of the deck you're playing. If you're playing the version with like Blessing of Might, then Argent Squire is fine. But personally, I don't like that version.
Blessing of Kings, if you're running that card also. So like, I actually like that version because she's really good against the Hunter deck, and she is also good against Zulok and things like that with Blessing of Might. That's why I really like the Blessing of Might version. If you're not running that version, I don't think you want too many one-drops. It matters if you want to run Secret Keeper or not, because like, if you're wanting to go big, how many cards are you cutting? Like, how many dudes are you cutting? Because I still think Leopard Gnome is a little bit better than him. Just because it's, no matter what, deals 2 damage, it power blasts their face. But aggro Hunter is a lot like Burn and Magic. So if you play Magic and you play Legacy, I think you're basically counting up how much damage that you equal, right? So like, this card's perfect for that.
I think you cut out a little bit there.
Oh, did I?
Yeah.
So anyone who's ever played Magic before, you've heard of combo decks or burn decks or storm decks that have dealt enough damage. So like, this deck is a deck that's trying to put together lethal, right? 20 damage to where it kills your opponent, or 30 damage. Sorry, I'm thinking Magic right now. Which is a lot like those decks. So if you've ever played in Magic, you'll understand where it's coming from. So you'll understand that, like, yeah, Worgen Infiltrators in no way is like a great, amazing, meta-breaking card. But like, this card will help you deal 2 damage to your opponent, which actually ends up being really good, that now they have to deal with it also. Because it's not like you're going to get one hit with it and it dies. Once it comes out stealth, the card doesn't just like automatically just vanish into some weird world where there's no Hearthstone cards. this card stays around technically. So like, yeah, it's super easy to kill. You can ping with mage, but then it allows you to also sculpt further turns, and that's why I think it's really good for hunter. Is because it allows you a way to. That's why this upper gnome have always been broskies with Abusive Sergeant, is because they help you deal that 30 damage that you're. Because in my opinion, hunter's always been this combo deck. It doesn't look like a combo deck in any way or shape or form, but it's trying to do you exactly enough damage before you can stabilize. So, like, it's trying to deal you 30 damage. It's not trying to deal you, like, 1,000 damage, like Patron Warrior was trying to do, of course, but it's trying to deal you exactly that much damage. So I've always thought as a base hunter as, like, this, like, combo deck that, like, by turn 6, you want your opponent to be at 0 health, more than any other deck, and you're trying to piece it together. Or, like, you're doing really weird things because you're a combo deck. Maybe you're not trading for that Nitro Good and you're going base for some weird reason on, like, turn 8, because, like, if you don't, you just lose the game. So, like, this card helps a lot towards that strategy.
Awesome. So, next on the list, we got the Darnassus Aspirant.
Woo!
Ass pirate, thank you very much.
Darnassus Ass Pirate.
Darnassus Aspirant.
Ass Pirate. Yeah, this is a card.
I don't think this should be on this list, only because I think my standards of this card are so high, it's not even funny. I think this card is the best card in the game. I think it's better than Dr. Boom. This card needs to be nerfed. No, I'm joking. Sorry.
Who invited this guy to be on our show?
We're gonna talk about the card that those statements are true later.
Yeah, so this card for me, when the Grand Tournament was like spoiled, everyone was losing their minds about this card and talking about how it was amazing and how Druid was going to be insane because there's 4 wild growths in the deck now. And I was looking at them and I was like, are you all just insane? Like, are you?
Yes.
Because this card is, you play it on turn 2 and it dies to their Fiery War Axe, and then that's it. Like, way to go. Like, you did nothing. You did absolutely nothing. Like, and that's the problem that I had with this card, is that, like, all of the decks that were good in the format were good at just, like, killing this guy when you played it on turn 2. So it just didn't do anything. And while there are still going to be decks that will be able to kill this guy on turn 2, from a majority of the decks that are going to be good now, this guy is actually like possibly going to live through a turn. And if it doesn't, it generally means that they traded one of their guys for it, or that they made a tempo play that's good for you in order to get rid of it, because the threat right. But like, if they're using it, like if Tempo Mage is using their turn 2 turn 3 frostbolting this, you're totally happy with that, because that means they didn't advance their board on that turn. And that's why I think, like, the ideal play out of Patron Warrior on turn 2 against Druid is playing a Fiery War Axe, even if there's nothing to hit with it, because you don't want to armor on turn 2 because you need your Battle Rages to draw extra cards. So, like, giving them something to kill with their War Axe on turn 2 was just, like, terrible. And now I think this card actually has a reasonable chance of being good, because, one, as I said, it might actually live and generate you mana, or it's actually going to do something meaningful and not just straight die for absolutely no reason.
So this card, I actually really like this card. Of course, this card was still good beforehand because it did have a wild growth effect on turn 2. I actually technically think this card got a little bad because now people are going to be playing more Pilot Shredders, and this guy's going to pop out of it, and you're going to feel real good about yourself. You're going to be like, this guy, and then you're going to kill it and probably win the game.
Yeah.
But I have actually been playing a bunch of aggro Druid. And this card is so good in that deck because the usual problem is like your opponent crossbolts it or wraths it or uses some type of remove on it. And this aggro druid getting significantly better is the reason I actually think this card is better, because the problem with aggro druid was you have a bunch of things that have 1 toughness in your living roots and things like that warrior would just whirlwind away. Well, the reason this card is so good in that deck is because you don't want to run wild growth because it does nothing, right? Because like the highest thing you're casting is 5 or 6 with force nature, right? Which is the worst fireball ever, by the way. And so like Fire Wind Axe would just kill it. But like the thing is you're playing aggro druid, so you play other stuff that your opponent deals with, and then you play this guy, and so you're going to keep that mana for multiple turns. So like that deck, I feel like this is the perfect spot for this card. I think that makes that deck significantly better. Definitely because this card replaces Zombie Chow. And guess what? In aggro druid, you don't want anything to do with Zombie Chow, or nothing at all. And if you are casting this card against any of the decks that aren't weapon-based classes or have a way to deal with it, even if they have a way to deal with it, a lot of your cards are better in cards like Shade and things like that. That if they start using all their cards on guys like this, you can unreveal your Shade on the second hit or on the first power-up. It seems weird, but it's things you can do. So like this card being a replacement to Zombie Chow, which is probably one of the better cards in the game in the early game, and the fact that aggro druid is going up in popularity, I think that helps this card out a lot. And definitely because Fell Reaver is a card and Pilot Shredder is a card that he can ramp you into it. That if he doesn't die. And also him pulling out Pilot Shredder, I think is actually the best possible thing, because it punishes you for playing Pilot Shredder, which there needs to be a card in the game that punishes you for playing Pilot Shredder. Because that card's busted.
Well, and there are actually quite a few cards that punish you for Pilot Shredder. But
but this one can actually just cause you to I played a game where I got double Pilot Shredder, and 2 of these guys fell out of it. I lost that game.
Yeah,
really hard. I innovated in one of the shredders out. Play a Pilot Shredder on turn 5. So I think that with aggro druid coming in the format, this card is just so good.
Yeah, the card's it's a good card. I definitely like the concept of it, and I feel like it'll be a lot better now since you're not going to get a Fiery Wind Axe 90% of the time. So with less Wind Axes, more aspirants living. So
90% of the time. I like how the number of patrons were in the format were 90% people playing patron.
Well, when you go against Warrior, they get their Fiery Wind Axe 90% of the time. I'm almost positive. At least
it feels
when
like
I play
100% though.
Yeah,
it feels like 100.
Alright, so the next card is interesting that it made it not on the list, but it made it here on the list because I would say this card's definitely a lot better, but it's a lot better because of some of the other cards on the list, and that card is Black Knight.
So this card
didn't get legendary.
Didn't just get better because of cards that are on this list. It's good because the best deck in the format not my opinion, because this card is insane. In my opinion, against the best deck in the format for Patron Governor. What does it do against Patron? Yeah, I killed your Dracosaur. Oh, but you killed me when you cast your Dracosaur. Because you dealt me 24 damage with all your dudes.
Wait, how did I cast this Black Knight?
Yeah. So, in that matchup, it is an overpriced Yeti.
Yeah.
Let that just set in. Would you ever cast a Yeti for 6 mana?
Nope.
No.
In Arena,
I would. I got Yeti freezing
Arena.
Not even in Arena. No.
I would.
I would cast a Yeti for 5 in Arena.
I feel like I have better plays in Arena than casting a Yeti
so,
on 6, but...
casting a Pitfire on 5. So, Black Knight was just so bad because it just felt bad to play against Patron. It's like Kazan Mystic, and why Kazan Mystic is bad. It's why Flare is bad. It's because you're usually playing a tempo deck that you put it into, and it's like whenever someone BGHs your Mound Giant, it's such a huge tempo swing that's almost impossible to come back from. So if you cast Black Knight and you're just I hit nothing, then you're just I just casted a 4/5. against Patron
for 6.
Right.
for 6.
Which
doesn't
like
even
generally a
count the card.
4/5 for 6 is fine, but against decks like Patron, like you're gonna get punished really really hard for doing that.
And so, where are you casting this card? Because if you want to cast it on their turn, like right after their turn 6 happens, you're casting Emperor Tharson. Guess what, guys? Black Knight doesn't really fight well against Emperor Tharson. So
No.
you're not casting on turn 6 against them. Are you going to cast on turn 7? Well, you don't want to cast anything on turn 7, turn 8, turn 9, turn 10, and like after the game after that. Like the way you beat Patron was you just hope they can't kill you and just didn't play anything. That's what it felt like. It was crappy, but like if you could kill all their creatures that they play before they got out of control, it was great. So like Black Knight really didn't do that. You played a 5 health minion that could get whirlwinded 3 times, and that just lost you the game because it only dealt 4 damage. Now the fact that it gets to hit other cards in the format that every deck is going to be playing, hitting a Noyatron isn't the worst thing ever. It's still a tempo swing because like people are going to be like, oh, at least I'm gonna have this minion in play for my Blast Mate. Because that's why people play Harvest Golem for a little while. Was that their mixed synergy cards were good. But now you just get hit Noitron, like, that makes great plans. Or you can hit more Belchers, and things like that.
There's going to be a lot more taunt cards seeing play, and especially now that a lot of the secret Paladin decks have started curving up into cards like Tyrion, makes it so that even against secret Paladin, this card has targets. Like,
well, and the aggro version, even if they're not playing the Tyrion version, the aggro version is also playing Anoitron because it's a divine shield minion that you can also put pump ups onto, and decks that are playing and the mid range Paladin decks are also playing Tyrion. Some versions are playing what's that one equipment? Gets divine shield and taunt.
Oh, Cockhammer. Yeah.
Cockhammer. They're playing Cockhammer. So like, yeah, it seems like it sucks, but like, also they printed cards in the recent past that you don't want to play against Patron. Cards like what's that new guy that gives a dude taunt?
Sparring Partner?
Sparring Partner. I think that card can also see play now because it seems like it's really good against an aggressive strategy-based deck. And a card that's not on this list that I also wanted to give a shout out to is Flamin'. Flamin', but I also think got better because of the number of War Axes went down. But now the fact that like people are still going to play War Axe. It's not going to go away. If you play Sparring Partner, you're going to be playing War Axe. And the fact that, like, if you're playing against a more aggressive deck and they have, like, a taunter for their dudes, that's the way Zoo's always been. They had a taunter for their dudes to hide behind your weapons. And now the fact that you can give a guy taunt and also hit it with your Wind Axe, I think is pretty powerful. So, like, of course, like, the card's not that good, but it could possibly see play in concession with your Black Knights. So like, because it's a really good card with Black Knight. People were also doing that with Mark of the
Wild
for your big game hunters and your Black Knights. So, of course, like those are a little cutesy, but you know, it's things in the past that have worked. We talked earlier about how this game needs cards that aren't just good on its own, that are good with synergies, and these are cards that like that's what some of the cards on the system are about. Is cards that you can use with other cards that create synergy. Outside of one of them that creates synergy that I hate.
Yeah.
We'll get to that later, though. I'm so upset.
So next on the list, we have a card I personally love because, well,
why is this card on the list?
Shaman. I play Shaman, so
yeah, it's a Shaman card. It doesn't exist.
Feral Spirits.
Wait, isn't Shaman just bad?
Feral.
All right, so moving on.
Yeah, it's a Shaman card, guys. Why is it on this list?
Feral Spirits, guys.
No, this card is actually sweet.
I feel like we should spend hours on Feral Spirits because it's a Shaman card. We all know Shaman's the best class in the game, period.
I'm just gonna say this card makes doges. Yeah.
I mean, yeah.
Can't beat it.
Good taunting. Not going to die to fiery War Axes since there'll be less of them. If we go to an aggro heavy meta, you know, if that's where we honestly believe that we're going.
True Doge.
Card's pretty good against a lot of the aggro decks, you know. So
yeah, no, it's great.
Dudes, seriously. 2 dudes, seriously.
2 Doges.
Yeah,
this card's great. This card has always been a really good card because you essentially make a 4/6 for 3 mana. That's 2 dudes, so that if they want to kill it with removal spells, they need 2 of them.
Also,
it's phenomenal against aggro because 2/3 is like the perfect stats for a taunter to like it kills most of their minions and like doesn't die to a lot of them. And you get 2 of them. And the overload cost is also very nice in the fact that you can play this on turn 3 and still have 2 mana on your following turn to do something like use your hero power or play a totem golem or such other flame tongue totem.
Spiders.
This card into Flame Tongue Totem is really good.
that's why I
Haunted
love
Creeper.
that card too, is Feral Spirits of the Flame Tongue Totem.
Yeah. So all around, this card is just really good, but sucked against Patron. Oh god, did you not want this card in your deck against Patron?
Why not?
I mean,
well, let me
I don't
tell
even know
you.
if you wanted to play Shaman against Patron, let's be real.
Why did you want to play Shaman?
Yeah. Number 1 mistake was playing Hearthstone. Number 2 mistake was wanting to play Shaman.
Well, I'm doing
Tell the audience why this card is bad against Patron.
You see, you cast it, and then your opponent is like Warsong Commander into Grim Patron, and they don't even need whirlwind effects anymore because now they just like attack your 2/3s and get patrons for free.
So this
and if you have a Frothing Berserker, then each of your Frothing Berserkers just got +4 damage. And if you had a oh god.
So the reason this card was bad was because if your opponent was if your opponent went Warsong Patron and hit your dudes, you're completely okay with that because you're going to be able to wipe their board. On the split chance that like you have some type of way to wipe the board, which you usually did with Zero into Lightning Storm. So you actually want them to do that. The reason that this card was so bad is because how much health do they have? 3. Guess how many whirlwind effects that Patron wanted to play? 3. So it just was. Because if honestly, if your opponent was doing the Patron thing, that's not how they beat you. They just beat you with a bunch of burst damage because they can get through any of your taunts.
And you would give them more burst damage.
Yeah, and so you played these cards that seemed really good against the Frothing Berserker plan, but they were actually just garbage because 3 whirlwind effects.
Yeah.
2 explorers, guys. 2 explorers.
Yeah. So
3 whirlwinds.
So next we got even more taunt with good old Belcher. The good old Sludge Belcher.
Yay! This card is just real good. Put it in all your decks.
I mean, Sludge Belcher.
Not Face Hunter. Not Face Hunter. Not Face Hunter.
Yeah. Okay.
Wait,
yeah.
This card got worse. What are you guys talking about? You can't charge it up.
Yeah, you cannot give it charge anymore.
I actually played Sludge Belcher in my Grim Patron deck.
I had a while where I was playing one Belcher in Patron.
You guys know how long that I played that card for? 0, because I play Commanding Shout.
I don't believe 0 is a length of time.
Yeah, it is.
Anyway,
0 days, 4 hours, 0 minutes. I played a bit.
Yeah, this card wasn't good in Patron Warrior, and it was okay against Patron Warrior. The main thing is that if they had a way to kill it, the 1/2 was actively bad against them. So a lot of the times they would play their first whirlwind effect, execute the Sludge Belcher, and then just get the 1/2 and be able to get a free Patron out of the 1/2, which was bad. And they can even play an additional whirlwind before they do that. So it was okay, but generally now this card is just going to be great because it's so good against aggro decks. 5 health is a lot to get through, and then once they get through it, there's another 1/2 taunt left over, and it's just such a big tempo swing. It's slowing down the aggro decks, and that's just going to be so important.
I'm just gonna say one thing about this card. I don't want to spend too much time on Sludge Belcher because we
Yeah,
it is.
I mean,
Is the
we've all
fact
seen
that
Sludge Belcher.
it's just like Feral Spirit. So they Whirlwind, execute it, and then guess what? They got 3 Whirlwind effects out of one creature. Like,
Yep.
Yeah.
3 Whirlwind effects is like the magic number to where you don't want to play a card. So like, yeah, it's just as bad as Tasdingo, but like, it's not as bad as this card is. Because like, 4 mana, still less than 5 mana. Like, this card is probably still better. But like, if they went off with the Patron idea, then they do get a dude out of it instead of just wasting an execute on it. So like, it was just bad on all the fronts if they had an execute with whatever the plan they were going for. So yeah, it got really a lot better. The card has always been good, but it gets better.
This card. Next card. This next card.
This card. This
I
card.
love this card.
I'm
This card's
excited
cool.
about this one.
I love good old Violet Teacher. One of the first decks I actually made
Mhm.
was the Violet Teacher Druid token deck way back. Like,
For that,
I think it was
man,
like during beta, actually. During open beta, I made that deck, and I had so much fun with it. And Violet Teacher kind of fell out of favor because of Whirlwind and Whirlwind-like effects. So it's, I think it's pretty cool that's
I
coming back.
mean, yeah, newsflash, making a bunch of 1/1s against Grim Patron, not so good.
Like, turns out
You mean-
you definitely died to Frothing Berserkers, then.
Yes. You were like, hey, look how many 1/1s I made, and they were like, hey, look how much power my Frothing Berserker has.
So the one thing that I want to say about this card, because I'm pretty sure Hopkins loves Rogue, and he's just going to go on about like 3 hours about this card. But the one thing I want to say about this card is the reason this card fell out of favor. Not only was it so bad against that version, like if they wanted to go off with either one of their win conditions, but there's this weapon that lines up perfectly with this card. It's called Deathbite.
Yep.
You hit their face with Deathbite, and then you hit their Violet Teacher with Deathbite. It kills all the 1/1s and the Violet Teacher. And so, like, that's why, like, it fell out of so much favor, is because Deathbite was just the perfect answer for it. And we just, like, Rogue just got worse. And Rogue and Druid are the best classes for this card.
Yeah. Well, it's not close, yeah.
Maybe Shaman, but Shaman
has better options.
No, Shaman doesn't have any options outside the basement.
Alright,
It's like so bad.
You can agree Violet Teacher sweet. Like,
yeah, I know, but honestly,
Hopper, do you really? How much can you really say about Violet Teacher being awesome?
I mean, the amount. Awesome. See, the thing about this card, and I love it, goes back to what I was saying at the start of the podcast about cards that are not good by themselves, but can be really good when you build around them. And classes like Rogue and Druid really can take advantage of this card. Just being able to get so much value out of it. You know, if you play this card and just make 2 1/1s, the turn you play it, that's already value, because you know that your opponent is going to have to kill it on their next turn, or you're just going to continue to get more 1/1s. And that's what I love about this card, is that it's a huge tempo swing, and that you're going to take up your opponent's turn killing this. And when they do, you still have something left behind from it. That's so great.
This card I actually wanted to segue into another card that is on this list, but I feel like it's worth mentioning. And I wasn't actually making a joke whenever this card was when I said Shaman, because I feel like this card is perfectly with Totem. And I feel like they're going to go up in spells because Healing Wave now actually matters. Before, Healing Wave was just a shitty ass card. No one should ever play it. The card was bad. The card was just bad because you play against Patron and you'd like, heal myself for 14, and then your opponent would kill you with 50 damage. That's just happened. But now that deck's no longer in the format, this card actually serves a purpose. It actually does something. Yeah, you may be like, well, against control, it does nothing. You still can heal one of your dudes, which is very underlooked at. But with Violet Teacher, more spells makes it actually viable in Shaman, which I think that this card could possibly, because of playing Tongue Totem and other cards in that deck, like if you want to run Defender or things like that, maybe better than Fireguard Destroyer if you're running that version. I feel like this card is super underrated in Shaman. I feel like it could possibly have a place. It may see no play in Shaman. I may be just a complete idiot, which is probably true. But, you know, like, it's something that I'm actually thinking about trying out. I really haven't played much Shaman recently. I did play at the end of one season to, like, rank 5 or something. But this card I feel like could possibly see. I don't see a bunch of play out of it, but with the amount TGT releasing more spells for Shaman, I think that this could possibly be a 4-drop. And I actually may try some Shaman. Who knows? Who knows? I'll just make sure it's playing out. So
Shaman's the best class, so I don't
no, it's not. Let's be honest.
so next on the table we got one of the pro-choice cards right here. Ancient of War.
Choice.
Like, let's face it, when you play Druid, you are pro-choice because there's so many choose ones.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
I'm really excited about this card because, one...
A 10-5 for 7 mana? That guy's huge!
Yeah, dude. You kill them in 3 attacks.
Or you can just play Power Blast, nerd.
So a 5/10 with Taunt is pretty good.
The reason I love this card, this card actually is not pro-choice because you almost will never choose the 10-5. Just don't do it, kids. Not even once. Meth. Ancient of War. Not even once.
Similarities.
How do aggro decks beat a 5/10 with Taunt? Without silencing it,
that you can innervate out, like
right. And the what I love about this card is that it's just a massive wall that you're gonna put up and be like, can you beat it? And they're gonna look at the big game hunter in their hand and they're gonna be like, nope.
No. Yeah.
Like, and that's the big thing is because
better too.
Black Knight will be good against these kinds of cards, but Black Knight isn't going to be played in the decks where you want this card to do the most work, and that's the aggro decks.
Yeah. But it still helps. It still does help.
Right, yeah, for sure. Like, the only way that they're going to have to get through this is silencing it or trading their entire board for it, which is why I think it will be really, really good in the mid-range versions of Druid now.
Yeah, I mean, with less executes running around, less your Ancient War is not just going to die to a Whirlwind execute, and you're not going to sit there all embarrassed. So
exactly.
I would say Ancient War definitely belongs on this list, and I really hope to see it.
Also, the decks that you're playing this card in also have a bunch of other taunts.
Yeah.
So Black Knight, whatever. You're gonna play another dude. Like, you're gonna get when you're playing this deck, you're gonna get tempoed out no matter what by Black Knight. I think that the fact that if this card does see more play, which I don't know about because I'm hard for the aggro Druid deck right now. I just can't get enough of that deck. So I don't know if you'll see more play, but I think we'll see actual play now because Commanding Shout and Execute won't be seen as much. Commanding Shout not at all. But if your opponent's Black Knighting you, it's going to be after the Ancient. It's not going to be like they're not going to Black Knight you after Ancient War. They're usually going to do it before you cast Ancient.
Yeah, so because they'll hit like a Belcher or a Druid of the Claw.
But like, even if they hit the also if they silence this, isn't it still a 5/10?
I believe it goes back to a 5/5.
I mean,
no, actually, no. I think you're right. No, I think you're right. I think it still is a 5/10.
Yeah,
it just loses top.
I'm pretty
it's
sure
like the other ones.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
that's like, and that's the thing. Yeah. Like, if they do silence it, it sucks. But like, you still get kill other things. It's still the worst Ice Howl ever. That's probably won't attack base, but will attack you.
So,
but if this card does see play, I just want to say this real quick. If this card does see a lot more play, I think that equality will become pretty big.
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
Of course.
Yeah.
Equality will be needed against.
Yeah.
If Taunt Druid becomes a thing again. So.
Then you're no longer pro-choice. You're just looking for equality.
Yeah. So let's get into the top 3 cards that you guys believe have gotten better because of Grim Patron Warrior dissipating. Number 3. Thoughts?
I'm just gonna let Focodoko take this one because I know he's.
Obviously,
super
Foco
hyped.
is super excited about Thoughts still.
So I thought this card is better than the number 2 card. Nothing's better than the number 1 card. I think that card's the best card in the game. But Thoughts, this card. Oh my god. So I'm so happy because I hate Dragon Priest so much. Oh man, I hate decks that have synergy in them, but is such awful synergy. So like I hate the dragon theme because like it's synergy, but if you don't have that synergy, your deck sucks so much to the point of if you're running dragons and you can have a third of your deck be dragons and sometimes not draw those dragons and you sit there and you're just like, oh well, I played my 2/1, I played my 2/6, I played my 1/4, and Thought still being back in the format just makes me so happy. And the reason this card is good is because it's good against the control decks. If people start running Flare, it's good against them. Like if you're running Flare, you're probably gonna have secrets. And the fact that you're not going to like do that, and you're not gonna be like, oh sweet, I got 2 whirlwinds.
Yeah, or an inner rage, or yeah.
You're not just like, oh yeah, oh boy. And because I think that this card is actually one of the better cards in the game. Because like against the when you go to fatigue, this doesn't count fatigue. It doesn't draw you cards. It takes cards. It makes your opponent have to think about what's in their deck. So like if your opponent's running Black Knight, instead of drawing cards, you play that. So they're like, oh man, do they have Black Knight? Do they have my Sylvanas? Do they have my Varian Rin? Like I don't know what they have. What did they get? Did they get my unstable portal? Am I gonna get buried off on the stable portal or something? And so like I love this card so much because it makes the game of layers. And that's actually what I really like about Hearthstone is you have to play around so many cards because if your opponent thought steals you and they get your Sylvanas and they play Sylvanas and it's the thought steal Sylvanas, you're just like, oh god, do they run a Sylvanas themselves? Or if you Black Knight their guy with your Black Knight, then they think, man, I run Black Knight, is that my Black Knight? So like you think about all these different things. It's such like a mind game thing because like maybe you play the cards you got even if you have a copy of your own, or maybe you cast
one thing you can do actually if you're really good is you can actually track the position of the 2 cards that they got from Thought Steal in their hand, and so that you can know when they play the cards that you thought stole. But you have to be.
It says created by Thought Steal. Anyway.
Yeah, it says created by Thought Steal now.
Oh, does it now? Okay,
yeah,
I haven't actually had anyone play this card against me since then.
Yeah.
Okay, gotcha.
It does without Westbinner, unstable portal, and things like that.
Yeah. It's just like the thing is, you still sit there and you'll still think, well, does my opponent play these? Like, did he just get a second one?
Yeah.
Because of me? Like, oh god.
Yeah,
what cards did he actually
in my opinion, this card has actually always been the best card in the entire game in a meta where control decks are dominant, because this card will just win you control mirrors, because you draw 2 cards that doesn't put you towards fatigue, and those 2 cards might end up just being like some of the best late game cards in the game because you're playing against control.
Or sometimes you'll get Equality Consecrate and you'll do a dance.
Yeah. But I mean, like, when you cast this and you get your opponent's Ysera and any other card, it doesn't actually matter. Like, well, you have 2 Yseras in your deck now, and as we all know, Ysera is a hard card to get rid of.
And I also think that this card is the byproduct of Control Priest being a lot better.
Yes, yeah, for sure.
Because this is the one card where you can't be like, well, like, because like Circle Healing, yeah, it's not preferable in like Dragon Priest, but like you still may run it in the version where you run Inner Fire, Divine Spirit. Like, but like this card is the card that's always been like, hey, are you playing Control Priest? Yeah. Well, there's this great card called Thought Steal. Play it. Because in my opinion, it's one, like, of course, like, it doesn't help you if you're playing the combo version of the deck that much, where you're playing like Malagos and stuff like that, and Prophet Valen. But this card helps you in the version of the deck where like you want to out fatigue your opponent, because this is what's always been about. Because like you're not winning through damage at all. Like that's the way you beat Warrior. You beat them through fatigue. Yeah, it seems weird that you're gonna beat a deck through fatigue that can armor up whenever you can only heal. But like you have so much spot removal and they have so much draw that you'll be able to end up doing it.
Yep.
So like this card is just like, there's so many cool things about this card that like even if it ends up not being like the best card ever, but it just seeing more play just makes me a little happy inside because it's like this card that like you have layers that you have to think about. You have to think about, oh, what is in my deck? Oh my god, oh, do I run Sludge Belcher still? Or oh man, did I just take Black Knight out of my deck or did I keep it in? Like there's all those things that you had to think about, and it makes people who net deck also sit there and they're just like, oh god, they go to the internet, they're just like, oh god, what am I running? And things like that. So it brings this game of strategies that like usually isn't in this game because Mage is the only one who can do this, and this is the most playable part of that outside of Burgle and Neferi. And Nexus Champion. Those are the three that can give you random stuff.
And Spellslinger.
And Spellslinger.
Yeah.
But like this is the one that takes it from your opponent's deck. That so like you 100% know that also very skilled players will also need to remember what cards they played out through the game and what's in their hand because every card that's already been played or is in their hand does not go towards the top team. So like if you don't know that, that's a very important thing to know. And so you can kind of track that and you can be like, okay, so I already cast Black Knight, so they can't have Black Knight. And then like they cast Ragnarok. And you're like, yay.
Right.
But like
it's also very important for the person casting the Thoughtsteel because now you know two of the cards in their deck.
Yeah, that too.
Yeah. Awesome. So, number 2, your guys' second card that you believe got the best or got better. Big Game Hunter. An amazing card already. Why did get Big Game Hunter?
I think this card's just
better.
as good. Because I still think that the best deck that comes into this is going to be Paladin. Of course, like with nothing that you can target out of the patron deck, it did get a little bit better. I still think Thoughtsteel should be number 2.
That's just because you really like Thoughtsteel. I think this deck is, or this card is going to be really, really good now. What we've been seeing is, well, Patron's gone. First of all, this card was bad against Patron. Couldn't kill anything. There's going to be a lot more Control Warrior. This card is good against Control Warrior. It kills stuff. There's going to be a lot of Handlock. This card's really good against Handlock. It kills stuff. And what we've actually seen from the aggro decks is that a lot of the aggro decks have started to try curving into big things near the end of their curve. Dr. Boom is in most of the aggro decks now. A lot of the decks, like Secret Paladin, Tempo Mage, have started playing Ragnaros at the top of their curve, just to try to finish off games in large bursts of damage. So the fact that this is going to have a target against almost every single deck, as well as being just like the best card against Handlock and like Control Warrior, I think makes this card just absolutely phenomenal. You're gonna see at least one in probably every single deck, except maybe Face Hunter because you have Hunter's Mark, that essentially fills the same role.
Priest will not be playing it.
Priest doesn't need it because it has Shadow or Death. But every other deck will be playing at least one. A lot of them, I think, will be playing 2.
And another reason that Thoughtsteel's so good, you could Thoughtsteel Derby at GH. I've done it. It felt really good. But the one thing I want to say about this card is before Black Rock Mountain came out, I was playing Zoo. I love Zoo. Zoo's actually my most played deck in the history of this game. And I was actually running a Big Game Hunter in there for a while. I think that the only reason I don't think this card is going to get better is because I think the deck that is going to replace Grim Patron Warrior is actually going to be either the more aggressive Zulok deck that doesn't run, like, not the demon version, but like the deck that doesn't even go up to Dr. Boom, that just goes to 5 and stops there, or it's going to be the Face Hunter deck that goes and just like tries to zerd you down, which doesn't have any targets. I do see myself playing 2 of this more often now, though, which I would never thought beforehand because Patron did get worse. So yeah, I just still don't think so. Thoughtsteel's such a cool card. That's just the best card in the game ever. Best 3-drop.
I mean, If I could play a deck that was only all of one card, it definitely would be 30 Thought Steals.
I mean,
Really?
yeah, that'd be tons of
30,
fun.
30, oh! 30 young Dragonhawks. MVP.
No, that'd be a sweet tavern brawl. Just like you get 30 thought steals.
30 Thought
What do you
Steals,
think?
except then you just Thought Steal their Thought Steals, and it's really awkward.
Yeah. Then you realize, oh wait, I'm not actually doing anything. This is awful.
But no, this card, I could possibly see myself playing as a 2-up. Beforehand, I would never have done it. So yeah, like I think the card is like got a lot better, but I'm just saying I'm pro Thought Steal. So
Yeah, I
just
mean,
just throwing it out there.
You are allowed to have your opinion. You are also allowed to be wrong.
So, number one, guys.
Well, I have the beast on my side.
Oh, I
Number
changed the
one.
picture early. I jumped the gun.
You jumped the gun. Everyone knows what it is. Everyone knows it's Mad Scientist.
They all know.
So
They all know.
there's no hype.
The cat is out of the
Way
bag.
to kill the hype. All right, Mad Scientist.
We want to rant
Okay.
about this card.
Oh my god, what were they thinking? Okay, first off, I'm going to say a couple of facts here. First off, is card OP? Yes, it is. Then how much does it cost? 2. Second of all, third off, is a 2/2 for 2. This
I
card,
think they can see all those things by looking at the picture.
you have the picture up? Okay. So, these are all my problems with the card. First off, it's an aggressive card that gives you card advantage that makes you a discount for a card. Back whenever the game originally came out, there's this card called Novice Engineer, right? The card basically no longer exists. No one plays it. It was a 1/2 for 2 mana that you drew a card, and it was played in
Literally a 2-of in every single deck.
like everything.
Every single one.
It doesn't die against Mage. It doesn't die against Druid just randomly. Like it would stay on the board for a turn. Like maybe you're playing a control deck and you want to kill their leopard or something. Who knows? You do what you want to with your life, right, girl? But this card is a 2/2 for 2 that instead of a battle cry draws you a card, it's a death rattle that draws you a card. But instead of just drawing you a random card out of your deck, it draws you a secret. Let me tell you, secrets are pretty good. But so instead of you like putting it into your hand, you're just like, oh, I have to play this card immediately. So if you're playing a mage, you just paid. I would say that a 2/2 body for 2 equals around 0.15 or 1.5, and then the secret that you're usually getting is going to from mage is worth around 2.5, depending on what it does. So you would usually get around 4 mana for 2 mana. That in Hunter is insane because it can be aggro. It can be very, very aggressive. At the same time, give you something that deals your opponent damage. And we talked about this before this. 2 cards that we wanted to put on this list, but we decided that the biggest reason they are going to get better is because of also Mad Scientist being a card and being infinitely better, and are explosive trap and snake trap.
Yeah. Explosive trap to me is the big one. Like explosive trap was just bad before. Because what it actually did was just make all of your frothing berserker, your opponent's frothing berserkers, do a lot more damage to you.
And
Sorry, I lost my camera there for a second.
Also would make more patrons.
You looked better though,
Going to
Hopkins.
be the best.
I'm back. Yay! Yeah. So what?
You looked a lot cuter when you were just pink.
Well, you know. But yeah, so the fact that explosive trap is going to be put in a dex again makes Face Hunter. It's going to be the return of Face Hunter. Everyone, has actually been okay with Hunter recently because you didn't want to play Explosive Trap and you would rather just play Freezing Trap because it was just better. It was a better tempo swing. And because of that, you were okay with being slightly less aggressive and you were more comfortable moving a little bit further into the game and playing cards like Savannah Highmane. Because you were relying more on tempo than on just kill them dead.
Wolfgang killed him dead.
But now that's all just out the window, and you just want to kill them dead again. So you're going to be playing Explosive Trap over Freezing Trap, which makes your Mad Scientist better. It makes all your aggressive cards better. You don't have to play Savannah Highmane anymore. You're not going to play. You're not messing around with cards like Houndmaster and Ram Wrangler, because those cards don't kill them dead.
Yeah,
Just kill them.
So like the thing with this card is that whenever they nerfed Novice Engineer, they made it a 1/1, which is very non-aggressive, and it can't play control. You don't want this in the aggro deck now, no matter what, because it's just gonna die. I think that Mad Scientist needs to become a 1/2 to take away from its aggressive standpoint. So it's more of you have to play in a control deck where card advantage does matter.
Right.
Because like in Hunter, you're just like, oh, there's a 2-drop that deals 2 damage to something and then deals another 2 damage. Oh, cool. I want to play that. Oh,
sounds good. I like that card.
Like, don't even have to use your brain. Like, I played a bunch of Face Hunter, and most of my games is just like turn 2 Mad Scientist, go, I win. Like, there's no way you can win this game.
Yeah.
And I'm playing a bunch of Tempo Mage right now. Guess what card it runs? Mad Scientist.
I was gonna say Mana Worm.
And so, the fact that this card can go get cards like Mirror Entity and stuff like that is just like so insane.
It's
just so big.
The big thing is that the way Hearthstone is right now, it is such an incredibly tempo-oriented game. It's all about tempo. If you get too far behind on tempo early in the game, you will just lose. Even if you have the best late game deck possible and like all the cards in your hand are super sweet, and even if you get to play most of them, you're still just going to lose because you fell too far behind. And the advantage in tempo that this card creates is absolutely absurd. The tempo swing is so huge that if you're playing against an aggressive deck and they have a double Mad Scientist draw, it really feels hard to win. Like, incredibly hard. Because it's so much value. Generally, it's going to trade with one of your guys and get a secret, which not only do you now have to play differently to try to play around the secret to make sure that you don't get further boned, they also just got to play it for free, and they can continue developing their board as normal, but then just have this secret in play. It's just absolutely absurd to me.
The biggest part about this card is the fact that like decks that were running secrets beforehand, like the best deck before the nerfs that was running secrets wasn't running Mad Scientist, because again the card is worth 1.5, and the secrets in Paladin cost 0.5.
They all suck.
You got commands.
They all suck.
They suck a little bit.
Real bad.
So like you gotta take Mad Scientist out of those decks. But like let's look at like statistics here. So before Patron got nerfed, best deck at tournaments was not Patron. Most people don't know that.
Yeah.
It was Mid-Range Hunter.
Yep.
Mid-Range Hunter is not as good as Face Hunter. So most people surprised. It has a good matchup against Face Hunter, but trust me, I'm scumbag. I played a little bit of Hunter in my day. Deck is insane. I do not like the mid-range version of the deck, but you can't play that. You could never play that. So Mad Scientist is just a card that has always, like, most people don't realize this, but it's like kind of warps the format a little bit to where like you can't play Rogue anymore because they have Explosive Trap and Violate Teachers are their best card. And like if you look at every card on this list, with Mad Scientist, it's just like Mad Scientist between Ancient of War. And Ancient of War looks like a lot better, but then like you're just like, wait, that costs 7, this costs 2.
Yeah.
This card gives you card advantage, this card doesn't.
And by the way, when you killed my Mad Scientist and I got the Freezing Trap off of it, and you played your Ancient of War, I was like, "Heh, that's cute." Like,
or I got my Mirror Entity off of it. Like,
yeah. Right.
good
yeah.
game, bro. But so like Mad Scientist is like this card that's like meant for, like, of course you can play it in 3, but it was really only played in 2. It's played in Hunter and Mage. This card has actually, I think, personally made Rogue like fall out of favor after Patreon came out, and because like cards like Mad Scientist or Body Teacher couldn't exist in that format where they had the War One defense with Death Bite with Explosive Trap, and then it was like it could never recover from just like so much together that whenever they moved to Freezing Trap, all your cards still, all of Rogue's still cards still just suck against Mad Scientist. And I actually think that this is the card that can make Shaman still not tier 3.
Well, that's the thing about this card is that it's so absurdly powerful, but like you can only play it in 2 classes.
Yeah, technically 3, but only
right,
2.
right. But technically, you can play it in 9.
Well, yeah, of course. But like, technically, there's 3 classes that actually can utilize the Death Rattle.
Right, and the fact that you're gonna print a neutral minion that's like a 2-drop and that's this good, and make it so that it's only good in 2 classes is just it's kind of unfair. I feel to the other classes. That's like, where's my really good 2-drop? You know, like, because that's honestly what a lot of classes are looking for.
And so, like, they kind of did that in a sense, but like none of them have been this good. So, like, you look at Shaman. Shaman has Flame Tongue Totem. They have Spiders, which has really Spiders has wrapped its head around being part of like 2 real classes, outside the time we saw in Druid, with Warlock and Shaman, and then like Aspirate is a good 2-drop in Druid, and like they've been trying to get like classes better 2-drops, like Shaman and not really Shaman.
But, no, Shaman got a phenomenal 2-drop in the
they got a phenomenal 2-drop. Tome Golem is like one of the best 2-drops in the game.
Yeah.
It's a very interesting card. But like they have Spiders. Spiders is like their best 2-drop. Like, the way that works with Flame Tongue Totem is just and it allows you to trade up a lot. But I think that the one class that has the only 2-drop that can fight with this is a 2-drop that this card goes into, and that's Mech Mage. Like, you get the best of both worlds. You get Mech Warper. Mech Warper is a wild growth, guys. If it lives, it's a wild growth that can do even more wild growth things. It's not just a wild growth. Sometimes it's an Innervate. That's a 2/3. Like, the card is just like insane. I think like you have this deck where you get a bunch of tempo from your Mech Warpers and stuff like that, and then you have this Mad Scientist that also gets you card advantage and a discount on whatever like your card advantage is. Like, sorry, Wiffle Fizzer Bang, you're not actually good at all, because I have a 2-mana card that does this. Oh my god! Oh, Wilford Fizzlebang is Mad Scientist, but worse, right, guys?
I mean, yeah. Why would you ever play Wilfred Fizzlebang when you could play Mad Scientist? Hello.
But the thing is like the fact that you can actually say that a 6-drop resembles a 5 or 2-drop is just insane. Like, and it's not like a comparison like, well, like Lotheb or Sylvanas. No, it's like Wolfle Fizzlebang that has an insane ability, is basically a 2-drop.
Yeah.
That has the basic exact same ability. It's just like insane to me. And it's easier to use. Like, of course, it's worse against silence. But if your opponent's silencing this, then they are silencing your other death rattles, which are actually probably better too. Oh my god! This is like Nox Ramus, the most broken set in the history of the game, and the biggest problem with this card isn't even now.
Oh, yeah.
Undertaker was the best card.
Yeah,
oh, man. Oh,
God.
They were so smart. They were so smart.
I mean,
like,
Undertaker Mad Scientist was like the Wombo combo. Like,
yeah, Undertaker Mad Scientist, or like into Web Spinner, because those all go into the same deck. Like, all 3 of those cards go into the same deck. And somehow, Blizzard, standing up there on their imaginary cloud thing, which is like the best credit card on Mad Scientist. What's it do? It wins you the game on the spot. Druid can't beat that card. How does Druid beat that card if they're playing against Mage? They just look at that card and they're just like, I was just running Zombie Chow instead of Aspirate. So, like, I think, of course, as we said, this card is like the rise of Cancer.
Yeah,
And
no, it's just, I mean, yeah, it's an
it's
aggressive
so
card
good.
that also provides tempo and provides card advantage.
Well,
It's just like the best of all three worlds. It has everything.
and so like you also look at the cards that like it goes gets. In Freeze Mage, it gets you cards that you need to have. You need to have Ice Block, or you just lose some games.
Yep.
If you have Ice Block going into turn 9, you feel really good about yourself. But like, and then you look at Hunter. Well, goes against something that deals 2 damage to your opponent's face. So it's like average
Well,
good.
and that's the great thing is that I feel like Mad Scientist
Like-
is actually a perfectly reasonable card in decks like Freeze Mage, right?
Yeah.
It's not overpowered at all in Freeze Mage. And the
Yeah.
big thing is if you made Mad Scientist a 1/2, it would be just as good in Freeze Mage as it is now.
Well, no,
Like-
that's just not technically true. It'd be able to kill Night Jugglers.
Okay, yeah, but like it would not be
Right,
it would not be a significant change.
Yeah, it wouldn't be like the end of Freeze Mage.
Right, yeah. Because it's still going to do because you're playing it for the death rattle effect. And in other decks, you play it for the death rattle effect and the fact that it's a 2/2. If it's a 1/2, do you still play it? Probably. Is it nearly as good? No,
In Tempo
God, no.
Mage, you for sure would. In Hunter, you actually probably wouldn't. Because
Yeah.
let's go to statistics again. As I said earlier, Hunter is trying to get to this 20 damage, right? Or 30 damage, right?
Yep.
It's a combo deck. Like it's not the combo deck of like the sense of Patron, but it is a combo deck. So like if you think about it as a combo deck, you have this card, right? That costs 2 mana, that has the stats of a 1 mana creature. So that's 1 mana. And then you have these cards that cost 1.5 mana. Well, yeah, 2.5 mana is really good. Like it does. Let's be fair here. The card seems like a phenomenal card, but the fact that it's not really worth 2.5 because it's not accomplishing what the Hunter wants to do. So it goes down to 2 mana worth of stats, and Hunter doesn't want a card that's worth 2 mana of stats in their deck.
Yeah.
So, like, there are cards that are perfectly fine in the game that cost 2 mana that, like, you'd be like, why doesn't Hunter run this? Well, it's not actually worth 2 mana to Hunter.
Right.
So it's worth like 1.75 if it was 1/2 because it's not trying to do what Hunter wants to do.
Yeah.
So Hunter doesn't want cards that are good at like face value. They want cards that are insane at face value. And guess what? Mad Scientist is insane. Like I thought, whenever I saw this card, I was like, it seems like a OP novice engineer that can only be played in 2 decks.
Yeah. Well, and honestly, I think Mad Scientist is actually even worth more mana because than what you were saying because I think it should be tacked on another 1.5 mana for drawing a card.
Well, yeah. Well, because like the way I think about it, I guess, yeah.
I mean, that's what it does, right? It draws a card and plays it for free. Like
the only reason I don't really tack on the cost of drawing a card is because I tack on that it's not like a selected, like it's not like you're drawing a random card. So like, because like you have to think about is you can only play it in 1 class or 2 classes. So like if it drew a card, the card would be significantly better, of course. Like if it drew a card and automatically played a card, the card would be the same.
Okay, yeah, obviously, but.
Yeah. Well, no. Like in the sense of like if it automatically drew you like a Night Juggler and you played the Night Juggler, right? Because that's actually usually what happens in Mage. You play it, you get a Night Juggler.
Right. Yeah.
that's on average, right? So like yeah, like maybe, but like if it went down to a 1/2, it's worth about 1.75 mana because it's not what you want to be casting. Like at that point, just like play another 2-drop, call it a day. Like play more aggressive 2-drop. So like I don't ever think they'll actually nerf Mad Scientist.
I highly doubt it.
It's like what you said earlier. People like synergy cards, and this card allows you to play more synergy based.
Mm-hmm.
I actually think honestly to God that even before Warsong was nerfed, this card is the most broken card in the game. It does something that allows a mechanic that is unfair, which is secrets, because secrets are just unfair. It had a very bad design in the game standpoint, in my opinion, but let's not throw that in there. And the fact that it takes that and then just like Basically, so it's like if you were playing Patron Warrior and your opponent cast Dark Whispers. And then the Patron Warrior calls Mom over, she gets the camera, he unzips his pants, he bends you over the table, and does dirty things to you. That's what it's like. Like, that's honestly how it feels. Like, most of my wins with Tempo Mage was me getting a mirror image or duplicate off of my Mad Scientist, followed up by something else. Like, it felt dirty, and it feels dirty. I feel bad, and I'm sorry to everyone I'm playing. It just feels so nasty, and the fact that only 2 classes can use it is just disgusting.
Yeah.
Like,
I mean, I feel like we could make an entire video about
why you hate Mad
why Mad
you guys
Scientist
don't
needs to be
even.
nerfed.
I honestly just hate this card. It's the card that I played the most, outside of Flame Imp, but this card,
Yeah. No, yeah, I completely agree.
Yeah, Mad Scientist is sweet now. I totally agree.
Yep.
So yeah, the guys' lists were pretty good, and I think we got a pretty long video here, to be honest. Like, wow, for
about 2.5
first
hours.
First episode, 2.5 hours. You know, not the worst, but not the best. So,
I feel like we could have been shorter. I don't know.
maybe.
I think I ran
something-
shit a little bit too much.
Definitely something we'll have to work on, though. But thanks
Yeah.
for bearing with us through a longer video. I mean, we talked about a lot.
Yeah, we covered a lot of stuff there. I mean, hopefully, to those people who are still watching, for one, kudos. But hopefully, you learned some stuff, and hopefully, the things that we said made sense to you and really influence the kinds of decks that you're choosing to play and the style that you're choosing to play, and maybe just some of the card choices that you're putting in your decks. But definitely, I think we would all love to hear any thoughts that you have. If you agree with something we said, or that you really liked, or if you disagree with something that we said and you think something else is the case, I think all of us would definitely love to hear any comments. Our Twitter handles are all on the screen. Definitely follow us on Twitter. Start up conversations with us. We're always willing to talk about Hearthstone or esports in general. Yeah, really.
To be fair, not always. Not if your opponent actually still playing Patron Warrior and he casts it's like
But yeah, like
I mean, I want to
also,
talk about Hearthstone for a while.
Yeah.
also,
Feel free
to give any tips, any advice.
Yeah, absolutely.
If you guys
We're
like
not
long
like I said, this
videos,
is-
if you guys don't like long videos, you want it shorter. And then suggestions of what to talk about. We have a
definitely.
couple more ideas for some more videos that we want to do, but it'd be cool to get the community involved.
If there's anything that you specifically want to hear us talk about, for sure we would be more than happy to do so for you.
Unless you play Hunter, then just don't talk to us. You're scum.
I play Hunter.
I play Hunter
and Shaman, so I'm just the
Oh wow!
person ever. But yeah, so
wow.
like I said,
No,
guys.
okay, sorry. If you guys play Shaman, don't talk to me. I'm too good for you guys.
But Fokodoko, Hopper, thanks for joining me, and thanks for an awesome first episode. It was, really long, but I think it
Never
was good.
forget the patron, boys. Never forget the patron.
Never
Rest
forget
in
the
peace, patron.
Rest in peace, patron.
Everybody is getting out of here.
Everybody get out of here.
Yeah.
See you guys.